What happens when the man you're running from discovers the secret you've been hiding for 3 months? Lena Hart thought she could disappear into the chaos of the city, pretend that one reckless night with Dominic Vieri never happened. But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially when they're growing inside you. Tonight, in the private dining room of his empire, an ultrasound image will shatter everything. He'll see his name, he'll know the truth, and he'll never let her go. If you want to know how far this story reaches, hit that like button and comment your city below. Now, let me take you into Lena's world, where one mistake became the beginning of everything. The rain came down in sheets, turning the Chicago streets into rivers of neon and shadow. Lena Hart pressed herself against the brick wall of the alley behind Aurelius, trying to catch her breath. Her hands trembled as she gripped the plastic bag containing her work apron, her phone, and the ultrasound image she should have destroyed weeks ago. 3 months. 3 months since she'd walked away from Dominic Vieri, and every single day had been a careful dance of avoidance. She'd thought working at his restaurant was punishment enough, a cosmic joke that kept her tethered to the very man she needed to forget. But Chicago was expensive, jobs were scarce, and Aurelius paid better than anywhere else would hire someone with her limited experience. She'd been careful. So careful. Different shifts, back entrances, never lingering where his security cameras might catch her for too long. Dominic rarely came to the restaurant anyway. He had an empire to run, darker business that kept him occupied in the shadows of the city. But tonight, Marcus had cornered her in the kitchen with those 2 words that made her blood run cold. "He's here." Lena pushed off the wall and started walking, her sneakers splashing through puddles. She'd make it home, hide the ultrasound better, maybe finally throw it away like she should have done the moment the technician handed it to her with that knowing smile. She'd figure out what came next. She always did. "Running away again, Lena?" The voice froze her mid-step. Deep, controlled, edged with something that might have been amusement if Dominic Vieri were capable of anything so light. She didn't turn around. Couldn't. Her entire body had gone rigid with the primal instinct that told prey when the predator had found them. "I don't know what you're talking about." Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. "My shift ended. I'm going home." In the rain, through the back alley. His footsteps were measured, unhurried. He didn't need to rush. They both knew she had nowhere to go. "Marcus said you looked ill. I came to check on you." "I'm fine." She forced herself to turn, to meet those dark eyes that had haunted her dreams for 3 months. Dominic stood 10 feet away, rain darkening his black hair, his suit probably worth more than she made in 6 months. He looked exactly as she remembered, sharp features, the kind of face that belonged on Roman coins, that air of absolute control that seemed to bend the world around him. And beneath it all, that dangerous magnetism that had destroyed her common sense one reckless night. "You don't look fine." He moved closer, and Lena's grip tightened on her bag. "You've lost weight. There are shadows under your eyes, and you've been avoiding the main dining room for weeks. I work in the back. That's my job. Your job is wherever I say it is. No threat in his tone, just fact. Come inside. We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about." The words came out sharper than she intended. "What happened between us was a mistake. I've moved on. You should too." Something flickered in his expression, there and gone too quickly to read. A mistake. He said it like he was tasting the word, finding it bitter. "Is that what you call it?" "What else would I call sleeping with my boss? With a man whose name shows up in the crime section more than the business pages?" She knew she was pushing, could see his jaw tighten, but fear made her cruel. "It was stupid. We both know it. Let's just pretend it never happened." "I don't pretend, Lena." He was close enough now that she could smell his cologne, cedar and something darker, expensive. "And I don't forget. Whatever you're running from, whatever has you looking over your shoulder like a frightened rabbit, you're going to tell me. Now." "Or what?" She lifted her chin, channeling defiance she didn't feel. "You'll fire me?" "Go ahead. I should have quit months ago anyway." "Firing you is the last thing on my mind." His gaze dropped to the bag she clutched against her chest. "What's in there that has you so nervous?" "Nothing, just my stuff." "Show me." "No." The word hung between them, a line drawn in the rain-soaked darkness. Dominic's eyes narrowed, and Lena saw the exact moment his patience, that thin veneer of civility he wore in public, began to crack. "I'm not asking, Lena. And I'm not one of your employees you can order around." Lie. She was exactly that. "I'm going home. Don't follow me." She turned to walk away, and his hand closed around her wrist. Not rough. Dominic never needed to be rough, but immovable. The touch sent electricity up her arm, unwanted muscle memory of other times he'd touched her, when gentleness had been a prelude to something that consumed them both. "Let go." Her voice shook now. "Not until you tell me what's wrong." His thumb pressed against her pulse point, and she knew he could feel how hard her heart was racing. 3 months ago, you were in my bed, in my life. Then you disappeared like smoke, and I let you because I thought you needed space. But this? He gestured at her, at the fear she couldn't quite hide. "This is something else." "It was just sex, Dominic. Great sex, I'll give you that. But still just... Don't!" The word cracked like a whip. "Don't reduce what we had to something cheap." "What we had was a fantasy." She pulled against his grip, futile. "I was the waitress playing Cinderella, and you were... you. It couldn't last. It was never going to last." "Why not?" The question, asked so simply, nearly broke her, because she'd asked herself the same thing 1,000 times. Why couldn't she have this? Why couldn't she keep the man who'd made her feel alive for the first time in her careful, controlled life? Why did the universe insist on reminding her that people like her didn't get fairy tales? "Because I'm pregnant." The words fell out before she could stop them, raw and terrible in the rain-filled silence. Dominic went very still. His hand loosened on her wrist but didn't release her. "What did you say?" Lena closed her eyes. The secret she'd carried like a stone for 3 months had finally escaped, and there was no taking it back. "I'm pregnant. 3 months. And before you ask, yes, it's yours. There hasn't been anyone else. There couldn't be." The last part slipped out unbidden, a confession she hadn't meant to make. When she opened her eyes, Dominic was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. 3 months. His voice had gone very quiet, which was somehow more terrifying than anger. "You've known for 3 months, and you didn't tell me." "I was going to... When? When the baby was born? When you'd moved to another city?" His hand moved from her wrist to her arm, steadying. "Or were you planning to disappear entirely?" "I don't know." The admission burst out of her. "I don't know what I was planning, okay? I was scared. I am scared. You're Dominic Vieri. You have people killed for looking at you wrong. What was I supposed to do? Show up at your office with a positive pregnancy test and expect... what? That you'd be happy?" "Yes." The single word struck her like a physical blow. "I would have expected you to trust me enough to tell me I was going to be a father." "Trust." She laughed, the sound bitter. "How am I supposed to trust a man I barely know? We had 6 weeks, Dominic, 6 weeks of incredible, terrifying, all-consuming something, and then reality hit. You live in a world I don't understand, a world where people disappear and cops look the other way. What kind of mother would I be if I brought a child into that?" "What kind of mother are you being now?" The question was sharp, precise. "Working yourself to exhaustion in my restaurant, living in what I'm guessing is a tiny apartment you can barely afford, carrying my child and bearing that burden alone." "It's my choice." It was. His other hand came up to cup her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. "Not anymore." The rain had soaked them both, but Lena barely felt it. All she could process was the intensity in Dominic's gaze, the promise of something she couldn't quite name. Not anger, something more fundamental, more possessive. "Show me." He released her face but kept one hand on her arm. "The ultrasound. I know you have it. Show me." Lena's fingers tightened on the bag. This was the moment. She could refuse, could try to run, could maintain the fiction that she had any control over this situation. But they both knew the truth. She was tired of running. With shaking hands, she opened the bag and pulled out the folded image. The edges were worn from being handled too many times, from late nights when she'd stared at that grainy shadow and tried to picture a future that didn't terrify her. Dominic took it with surprising gentleness, unfolding it under the dim light from a nearby street lamp. Lena watched his face as he processed what he was seeing. The curve of a tiny spine, the suggestion of a head, and there, in the corner, her name. Lena Hart, and next to it, in the technician's neat handwriting, Father, Dominic Vieri. She'd been too shocked to correct it at the time. Too caught up in the reality of what was growing inside her to think about the implications of his name being on that paper. Sophia. His voice was rough. What? If it's a girl, Sophia. He looked up from the ultrasound, and Lena saw something in his expression she'd never seen before. Vulnerability. My mother's name. The casual mention of his mother, the human detail dropped into this surreal conversation, made it all suddenly, devastatingly real. This wasn't just about her anymore. It wasn't about the mistakes she'd made or the consequences she'd been trying to handle alone. This was about the life growing inside her, a life that belonged to both of them. Dominic, you're coming with me. He folded the ultrasound with care that contradicted his commanding tone. Now. I'm not going anywhere with you. Yes, you are. He pocketed the image and Lena felt its loss like a physical ache. You can walk or I can carry you, but you're not spending another night in whatever inadequate apartment you've been hiding in. Not while carrying my child. You can't just, I can, I am. He pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. My car will be here in 2 minutes. We're going to my estate. You're going to eat a proper meal, see a doctor, and then we're going to discuss how this is going to work. How what is going to work? Lena's voice rose. You can't kidnap me. I'm not kidnapping you. I'm taking care of what's mine. The possessiveness in his tone should have made her angry. Instead, it sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold rain. You and that baby are mine, Lena. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's. Keep telling yourself that. A black SUV pulled up to the curb as if summoned by his will alone. Get in the car. And if I refuse? Dominic stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Then I'll make you a promise. I'll let you go tonight. But tomorrow, I'll buy your building, your landlord, every business within 10 blocks of your apartment. I'll buy them all, and I'll close them. And I'll make sure that every step you take in this city reminds you that you're carrying my child and trying to shut me out of their life. The threat was delivered calmly, matter-of-factly. Lena had no doubt he could do it, would do it. That's insane. That's fatherhood. He opened the car door. Get in, Lena, please. The please, tacked on like an afterthought, was somehow more compelling than all the threats. It suggested that beneath the commands and the possessiveness, there was a man who was asking, not just taking. She looked at the open car door, at the leather interior and the driver who stared straight ahead, professionally ignoring the drama unfolding behind him. At Dominic, standing in the rain with her ultrasound in his pocket and determination carved into every line of his face. Then she looked down at her stomach, still flat, still hiding the secret that had just been dragged into the light. I hate you, she whispered. I know. He guided her toward the car with a hand on the small of her back. Get in anyway. Lena climbed into the SUV, the warmth of the interior a shock after the cold rain. Dominic slid in beside her, too close in the confined space, and the door shut with a final sounding click. The driver pulled away from the curb without being told, as if he'd known all along where this was heading. Lena stared out the window, watching her neighborhood disappear as they headed north toward the part of the city where Dominic's world existed. How long have you known I was working at Aurelius? She asked quietly. Since the day I hired you. He didn't look at her, his gaze fixed on something outside his own window. Did you think it was a coincidence? You hired me specifically? I hire everyone who works for me specifically, Lena. But yes, when you applied, I made sure you got the position. Why? Now he did look at her, and the intensity in his dark eyes made her breath catch. Because 6 weeks wasn't enough. Because when you disappeared, I told myself to let you go, that you'd made your choice. But I couldn't. His hand found hers in the darkness of the car, fingers threading through hers. I couldn't let you go completely. So I kept you close, even if you didn't know it. That's... She struggled for words. That's controlling, manipulative. Yes. No apology in his voice. It is. The honesty disarmed her. Lena had expected denials, justifications. Instead, Dominic offered her the truth, unvarnished and unapologetic. "I can't live in your world," she said finally. "I can't be what you need me to be." "You already are." His thumb stroked across her knuckles. "You've been running from it for 3 months, but that doesn't change the truth. You're mine, Lena. You were mine the moment you looked at me across that restaurant and didn't flinch. Mine when you let me take you home. Mine when you carried my child and thought you could bear that alone. People aren't possessions." "No." He lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her palm that sent heat through her despite everything. "But some connections transcend choice. Some things are inevitable." The SUV turned onto a private road, and Lena saw the estate for the first time. She'd known Dominic was wealthy. You didn't run half of Chicago's underground without accumulating wealth. But seeing it was different. The house rose from manicured grounds like something from another era, all stone and soaring windows, lit from within like a fortress made of light. "This is your home?" "Our home," he corrected her automatically. "For now." The car stopped in front of massive doors, and a man in a suit appeared immediately, opening Dominic's door. He stepped out, then offered Lena his hand. She stared at it for a long moment. This choice, this acceptance of his help, felt monumental in a way that had nothing to do with getting out of a car. Finally, she placed her hand in his and let him help her out. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of it, clean and electric. Dominic kept her hand in his as he led her up the steps, through doors that opened at their approach, into a foyer that was all marble and understated elegance. "Sir." An older woman appeared, her expression professionally neutral, despite the sight of Dominic dripping water onto her floors with a soaked, terrified waitress at his side. "Shall I prepare the East Wing?" "The master suite." Dominic's tone left no room for argument. "And have Dr. Chen come first thing in the morning. Also, I'll need a full wardrobe delivered tonight." He glanced at Lena. "Size?" "I'm not staying." The words came out automatically, even though they both knew she was lying. "Size, Lena?" 6. The admission felt like surrender. Sometimes 8. The woman nodded and disappeared. Dominic guided Lena deeper into the house, through rooms that blurred together in her overwhelmed state, up a sweeping staircase, down a hallway lined with art that was probably worth more than her entire life. Finally, he opened a door to reveal a bedroom that was larger than her apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds. A fireplace crackled with warmth. The bed was massive, covered in linens that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "The bathroom is through there." Dominic pointed to a door. "Take a hot shower. There are robes. I'll have food brought up." Lena stood in the middle of the room, dripping on what was probably an antique rug, and felt the full weight of the last hour crash down on her. "I can't do this." "Yes, you can." He moved closer, framing her face with his hands. "You've been doing it alone for 3 months. Now you're going to let me help." "Why?" The question came out broken. "Why do you even want this? You could have anyone. Why saddle yourself with the mother of my child?" He leaned down until his forehead rested against hers. "With the only woman who's ever made me want something beyond power and control? With you? You don't know me. I know enough." His lips brushed her temple, gentle in a way that contradicted everything he was. "I know you're stubborn and proud and terrified. I know you think you have to handle everything alone. I know you've been fighting for survival so long, you've forgotten what it feels like to let someone else carry the weight. And you want to carry it?" She pulled back to look at him. "Or do you just want to control it?" "Both." The honesty again, stark and unflinching. "I won't lie to you, Lena. Control is how I've survived, how I've built what I have, but this..." His hand moved to rest gently on her stomach. "This isn't about control. This is about protection. About making sure my child and their mother never know what it means to struggle." "What if I don't want your protection?" Then you're going to be very frustrated." The ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Because you're getting it anyway. Now shower, eat. We'll talk more tomorrow." He stepped back, and the loss of his warmth made Lena aware of how cold she was, how exhausted. The adrenaline that had kept her moving was fading, leaving only bone-deep tiredness. Where will you be? Right here. He gestured to a chair by the fireplace. I'm not leaving you alone tonight. That's not necessary. It is for me. He shrugged out of his wet jacket, revealing the white shirt beneath. Go, Lena, before you collapse. She wanted to argue, to maintain some illusion of independence, but she was so tired, and the thought of a hot shower and clean clothes was too tempting to resist. The bathroom was as excessive as the bedroom, all marble and gold fixtures and a shower that could fit 4 people. Lena stood under the spray until the water ran cold, trying to wash away the feeling that her life had just been irrevocably altered. When she emerged in the softest robe she'd ever worn, she found food waiting on a table by the fire. Dominic was in the chair, jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled up, looking at his phone. He looked up when she entered. Sit, eat. The food was simple: soup, bread, fruit, but perfectly prepared. Lena realized she hadn't eaten since breakfast, and her stomach cramped with hunger. She sat and ate while Dominic watched, his gaze tracking every spoonful like he was memorizing the sight of her. Stop staring, she muttered. I'm allowed to stare at the mother of my child. You keep saying that, my child, like it's settled. It is settled. He set his phone aside. The moment I saw that ultrasound, it was settled. This baby is mine. You are mine, and I protect what's mine. I'm not a possession, Dominic. No. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You're so much more than that. You're the woman carrying my child. The woman I haven't been able to forget for 3 months. The woman who makes me want to be something other than what I am. And what are you? Dangerous. He said it simply, a fact. Violent when necessary. Ruthless in business. The kind of man mothers warn their daughters about. His gaze held hers. But I've never hurt someone who didn't deserve it, never taken something that wasn't offered or owed, and I would die before I let harm come to you or our child. The conviction in his voice made her believe him, which was perhaps the most dangerous thing of all. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now you rest. Tomorrow we see a doctor. Make sure you and the baby are healthy. Then we figure out the details. What details? Where you'll live. What you need. How we make this work. He stood, moving to the bed and turning down the covers. But tonight, you sleep. Lena set down her spoon, the food sitting heavy in her stomach. I can't just uproot my entire life. Your entire life is a studio apartment and a waitressing job. No judgment in his tone, just fact. I'm offering you more. I don't need more. But our child does. He turned to face her. And whether you want to admit it or not, so do you. When was the last time you slept through the night? When you weren't worried about making rent or whether you could afford groceries? That's called normal life for most people. Not for you, not anymore. He approached her slowly, like she might bolt. Let me do this, Lena. Let me take care of you. And what do you get in return? You. Simple. Final. Here. Safe. With my child growing inside you. That's it? You don't expect other things? Understanding flickered across his face. You think I brought you here to sleep with you? Not a question. Didn't you? No. He crouched in front of her chair, bringing their eyes level. I brought you here because you're pregnant and exhausted and trying to handle something impossible alone. If we end up in bed together again, it'll be because you want it, not because you think you owe me. The distinction mattered more than she wanted to admit. Lena searched his face for deception and found none. Just intensity, possession, and something that looked almost like tenderness. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. His hand covered hers. But you don't have to be scared alone anymore. It was the gentleness that broke her. Lena felt tears she'd been holding back for 3 months finally spill over, and then she was crying. Not pretty tears, but ugly, exhausted sobs that shook her whole body. Dominic pulled her from the chair into his arms, holding her while she fell apart, murmuring things in Italian she didn't understand, but that sounded like comfort. When the storm finally passed, Lena found herself on his lap, face buried in his neck, feeling hollowed out and strangely lighter. Better? He asked quietly. Maybe. She pulled back to wipe her face. I'm still angry with you. I'd be disappointed if you weren't. He brushed a strand of wet hair from her face. But you're here. That's enough for now. He carried her to the bed. She was too tired to protest, and tucked her in like she was something precious. Then, true to his word, he returned to the chair by the fire. You're really going to sleep there? Lena asked. I said I wasn't leaving you alone. The bed is big enough for both of us. I know. His gaze met hers across the room. But if I get in that bed with you, I won't be able to keep my hands to myself, and you need rest more than I need to touch you. The admission sent heat through her, muscle memory of other nights when his hands had been everywhere, when she'd learned what it meant to be consumed by another person. Dominic! Sleep, Lena. His voice had gone rough. Before I change my mind about being noble. She closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her under. The last thing she heard was the crackle of the fire and the sound of Dominic's breathing, steady and sure in the darkness. When Lena woke, pale morning light was filtering through the windows. She was disoriented for a moment. The bed was too soft, the room too large, and then memory returned in a rush. Dominic, the ultrasound, his estate, everything. She sat up and found him exactly where he'd been, asleep in the chair by the now cold fireplace. Even in sleep, he looked ready to move, one hand resting on the arm of the chair in a way that suggested he could be on his feet in seconds. For the first time, Lena let herself really look at him. Not the crime boss or the controlling man who'd commandeered her life. Just him. The dark hair falling across his forehead, the shadow of stubble on his jaw, the way his shirt had come untucked, revealing a sliver of tanned skin. He'd stayed all night in an uncomfortable chair because he'd promised not to leave her alone. The realization did something complicated to her chest, something she wasn't ready to examine too closely. A knock at the door made her jump. Dominic was on his feet instantly, tension in every line of his body until he seemed to remember where he was. He moved to the door and opened it partially, revealing the same woman from last night. Dr. Chen is here, sir, and the clothing has been delivered. Give us 10 minutes. The door closed. Dominic turned to find Lena watching him. Good morning, he said, voice rough with sleep. You stayed. I said I would. He ran a hand through his hair. There are clothes in the closet. The doctor is a friend. She'll be discreet. And after you've been examined, we'll talk about what comes next. Dominic, 10 minutes, Lena. Then we face this together. He left the room before she could respond, and Lena was alone with the morning light and the impossible situation she'd somehow stumbled into. She thought about running, about slipping out while he was gone and disappearing into the city. But the image of him sleeping in that chair, of his hand gentle on her stomach, of the way he'd said, our child, like it was both a claim and a vow, it kept her rooted in place. For better or worse, Dominic Vieri knew her secret now, and somehow, Lena suspected, nothing would ever be the same again. The closet that had been empty last night was now filled with clothes. Not just any clothes, designer labels Lena recognized from magazines, everything from casual wear to elegant dresses, all in her size. She ran her fingers over a soft cashmere sweater and felt a strange mix of gratitude and resentment. This was what Dominic did. He identified a problem and solved it with money and efficiency, never asking if she wanted the solution. She chose jeans and a simple blouse, determined not to let the luxury seduce her into forgetting why this was all wrong. When she emerged, Dominic was waiting in the hallway, changed into fresh clothes, looking every inch the powerful man who commanded rooms with his presence. Ready? He asked. Do I have a choice? Always. He studied her face. But I hope you'll make the right one. Dr. Chen was waiting in what appeared to be a sitting room converted into a temporary examination space. She was a petite woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that immediately put Lena at ease. Miss Hart. She extended her hand. I'm Dr. Angela Chen. I've been Dominic's family physician for years. I understand congratulations are in order. Lena shook her hand, acutely aware of Dominic standing just behind her. Thank you. Why don't we start with some basic questions, and then I'll do an examination if you're comfortable with that. Dr. Chen gestured to a chair. Dominic, you can wait outside. I'm staying. His tone left no room for argument. Dr. Chen looked at Lena. Is that all right with you? Every instinct told her to say no, to maintain some privacy, some boundary between her and Dominic's overwhelming presence. But when she glanced back at him, she saw something in his expression that stopped her. Not control or possession, but genuine concern. "He can stay," she heard herself say. The examination was thorough but gentle. "Doctor." Chen asked about her medical history, her symptoms, how she'd been feeling. Lena answered honestly, admitting to the exhaustion, the occasional nausea that had mostly passed, the anxiety that kept her awake at night. "And you've been working full-time?" Dr. Chen's tone was carefully neutral. "I have to work." "Had to," Dominic corrected quietly. Past tense. Lena turned in her chair. "I'm not quitting my job." "You already did. I accepted your resignation this morning." "You!" Fury rose in her chest. "You had no right." "I had every right." He crossed his arms. "You're exhausted and pregnant. You're not working 12-hour shifts on your feet anymore. That's not your decision to make." "Ladies, gentlemen." Dr. Chen's voice cut through the rising tension. "Perhaps we can discuss employment after the examination." She gave Dominic a pointed look. "And perhaps Mr. Vieri could remember that stress isn't good for the baby." The reminder seemed to drain some of the fight from him. He nodded stiffly and stepped back, though his jaw remained tight. The physical examination confirmed what Lena already knew. She was healthy, the pregnancy was progressing normally, but she was underweight and showing signs of chronic stress. "I'd like to see you again in 2 weeks," Dr. Chen said as she packed her equipment. "And I'm going to recommend rest, proper nutrition, and reduced stress." She looked meaningfully at Dominic. "That means no more arguments about work." After she left, Lena stood at the window, staring out at the manicured grounds. She could feel Dominic behind her, a presence that filled the room. "You had no right," she said finally. "I know." "Then why did you do it?" "Because someone has to protect you, even if it's from yourself." He moved closer. "You would have worked yourself into the ground trying to prove you didn't need help." "Maybe I don't. The circles under your eyes say otherwise." His reflection appeared in the glass beside hers. "You've lost 8 pounds since I last saw you, Lena. 8 pounds you couldn't afford to lose. How long before you collapsed, before something happened to the baby?" The question hit too close to fears she'd been suppressing. "I was managing." "Barely." He turned her to face him, hands gentle on her shoulders. "Let me do this. Let me take care of you. I don't want to be another thing you control. This isn't about control, it's about—" He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. "When I saw that ultrasound, when I realized you'd been carrying this alone for 3 months, do you know what I felt? Anger? Terror." The admission seemed to cost him. "Terror that something could have happened to you, that I could have lost you both without ever knowing. I can't—" His hands tightened fractionally. "I can't let that happen." Lena searched his face, looking for manipulation and finding only raw honesty. "What do you want from me, Dominic? Really?" "I want you here, safe. I want to know our child is being taken care of." He paused. "And I want the chance to prove that I can be what you need." "You don't even know what I need." "Then tell me." The challenge was quiet but unmistakable. "Tell me what you need, and I'll make it happen." "I need independence. I need to not feel like a prisoner in a gilded cage." "Done." The answer came immediately. "This house has a gym, a pool, a library, grounds you can walk. You're not a prisoner, Lena. You're a guest. A guest who can't leave? A guest I hope will choose to stay." He released her shoulders but didn't step back. "Give me 2 weeks. Stay here. Let Dr. Chen monitor you and the baby, and if at the end of that time you truly want to leave, I'll have Marcus drive you wherever you want to go." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Something flickered in his eyes. "But I'll also know you're safe, that you have my number, that if you need anything, anything at all, you'll call me." It was more compromise than she'd expected. Lena studied him, trying to understand the man who could be ruthless in business yet gentle with her, controlling yet willing to negotiate. 2 weeks, she said finally. "But I keep my phone. I can contact anyone I want, and you don't make any more decisions about my life without asking me first." "Agreed." He extended his hand. "Deal?" She shook it, and the contact sent familiar electricity through her palm. "Deal." A throat cleared from the doorway. They both turned to find a young woman in professional attire holding a tablet. "Mr. Vieri, your 10 o'clock is waiting." Dominic checked his watch and swore softly in Italian. "Tell them I'll be there in 5 minutes." He looked back at Lena. "I have to go. Business that can't wait. But I'll be back for dinner. 8 o'clock. We'll eat together. I'm not some housewife waiting for her husband to come home. No, you're the mother of my child, and I'd like to share a meal with you." He moved to the door, then paused. "Maria will show you around the house. Anything you need, ask her. Anything you want, it's yours." Then he was gone, leaving Lena alone in the massive house with too many questions and not enough answers. Maria turned out to be the older woman from last night, and she showed Lena through the estate with quiet efficiency. The house was even larger than Lena had realized. A gym that looked like it belonged in a luxury hotel, a library that could have been in a museum, a pool surrounded by windows that overlooked the grounds. Every room was immaculate, every detail carefully chosen. "How many people live here?" Lena asked as they walked through yet another sitting room. "Just Mr. Vieri." Maria's tone was carefully neutral. "And the staff, of course, but we have separate quarters." "It's too big for one person." "He's been alone a long time." Something in Maria's voice suggested more than she was saying. "It will be good for him to have family here." The word family made Lena's stomach clench. That's what they were creating, wasn't it? Whether she wanted it or not, the baby growing inside her tied her to Dominic in a way that couldn't be undone. The library drew her back after the tour. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined the walls, filled with everything from leather-bound classics to contemporary fiction. A fireplace dominated one wall with deep chairs positioned for reading. It was the first room that felt lived in, personal. Lena ran her fingers along the spines, recognizing titles. When she pulled out a worn copy of The Count of Monte Cristo, she found notes in the margins. Dominic's handwriting, she realized. Sharp observations, questions, reactions to the text. It was a glimpse into his mind, into the man behind the power. She was deep into the book when she heard voices from the hallway, male voices, tense and arguing. "Told you to handle it quietly." "We tried. He's not cooperating." A voice she didn't recognize, rough and irritated. "Maybe it's time for a more direct approach." "No." Dominic's tone was ice. "I said no bodies unless absolutely necessary. Find another way." "He's threatening to go to the feds." "Then give him a reason not to." A pause. "Where's the wife?" "Safe house on the south side." "Kids?" "2. Both in private school." Lena's blood ran cold as she understood what she was hearing. This was Dominic's real world. Threats, leverage, using people's families to control them. She'd known it intellectually, but hearing it discussed so casually made it visceral and terrifying. "Make sure they stay safe," Dominic said. "I don't hurt children, but make sure he knows we could. Sometimes the possibility is enough." Footsteps moved away, and Lena sat frozen in the chair, the book forgotten in her lap. This was who she'd bound herself to. A man who threatened children's safety to maintain control. When Dominic appeared in the doorway an hour later, she was still sitting there, the book closed. "I thought I'd find you here." He moved into the room, loosening his tie. "Maria said you spent the afternoon reading." "I heard you." The words came out flat. "In the hallway. With whoever that was." His expression didn't change, but something shuddered in his eyes. "What did you hear?" "Enough." She stood, setting the book aside. "Threatening someone's wife and children. That's your business?" "Yes." No apology, no justification. "That's part of it." "How can you be so calm about it?" "Because it's necessary." He poured himself a drink from a crystal decanter, not offering her one. "The man in question stole from me $500,000. He's threatening to cooperate with federal investigators unless I forgive the debt." "So you threaten his family?" "I make him aware that his choices have consequences." Dominic took a sip. "I won't hurt his wife or children. I've never hurt an innocent in my life. But he doesn't know that. The fear is enough to make him reconsider." "That's sick. That's survival." He set the glass down with careful precision. "In my world, weakness gets you killed. Mercy is exploited. The only way to maintain order is through strength and the willingness to use it. And that's the world you want to bring a child into? The question hung between them, sharp and accusing. Dominic crossed to her slowly, and Lena forced herself not to step back. No, he said quietly. It's the world I'm going to change for our child. How? By threatening fewer families? By transitioning my business into legitimate channels. He reached past her to pick up the book she'd been reading. You chose this one. Why? Don't change the subject. I'm not. He opened to a page with notes in the margin. This is my favorite book. Do you know why? Dominic, because it's about a man who loses everything, who's betrayed and destroyed, who crawls out of hell with nothing but will and intelligence. His finger traced the words on the page. And he rebuilds himself into something powerful, something that can protect itself. He also becomes a monster in the process. Does he? Or does he become what he needed to be to survive? Dominic closed the book. I was 14 when my father was killed in front of me. 17 when I took over what was left of his organization. 23 when I stopped counting how many men had tried to kill me. The confession was delivered without emotion, but Lena heard the weight behind it. I didn't know. I don't advertise my history. He set the book down, but I'm telling you now because you need to understand. Everything I am, everything I've built, comes from a choice I made at 14 years old, standing over my father's body. I chose to survive, to become strong enough that no one could hurt me again. And the people you've hurt in the process deserved it. No hesitation. Every single one. I've never harmed an innocent, Lena, never taken from someone who couldn't afford to lose it. The men I threaten, the businesses I control, they're all part of a world that chose violence first. But our child will never know that world. The intensity in his voice made her believe him. I've already started the transition. Legitimate real estate, technology investments, venture capital. In 5 years, the Vieri name will be associated with business, not crime. You can't just walk away from what you've built. I can. I am. He moved closer. For you, for our baby. I'm dismantling an empire piece by piece and building something clean in its place. Why should I believe you? Because I've never lied to you. He cupped her face with one hand. I've been controlling, possessive, probably terrifying, but I've never lied. And I'm not lying now. This child changes everything. Lena wanted to pull away to maintain her anger and fear, but his touch was gentle, and the look in his eyes was so raw it hurt to see. I'm scared, she whispered. I know. His thumb brushed her cheek. But you don't have to be scared alone. You keep saying that because it's true. He leaned down until his forehead rested against hers. I know I'm not easy. I know my world is dark and complicated, but I swear to you, Lena, I will do everything in my power to keep you and our child safe. What if that's not enough? Then I'll find a way to make it enough. His other hand settled on her stomach, gentle and possessive. This baby deserves better than what I had. Better than the fear and violence and constant vigilance. And I'm going to give that to them, even if it means burning down everything I've built. The conviction in his voice was absolute. Lena closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of his hand through her shirt, the solid presence of him surrounding her. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. Neither do I. A rough laugh escaped him. I know how to run an empire, how to read people, manipulate situations, win wars. But this? Being a father? Being with you? I'm completely out of my depth. The vulnerability in the admission was startling. You? Out of your depth? Terrified, he pulled back to look at her. Every minute of every day since I saw that ultrasound. What if I'm too much like my father? What if I can't protect you? What if... She kissed him to stop the words, acting on instinct rather than thought. His lips were warm, familiar, and the contact sent heat spiraling through her. He made a sound low in his throat and pulled her closer, deepening the kiss until she was lost in it. In him, in the remembered sensation of being consumed. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers again. That's dangerous, he said roughly. Why? Because if we start this again, I won't want to stop. And you deserve better than being seduced before you've made a real choice about us. Maybe I've already made it. Have you? He searched her face. Or are you just tired of fighting? The question forced honesty. I don't know. Both, maybe. Then we wait. He pressed a kiss to her forehead and stepped back, creating distance. Until you're sure. Until you choose me because you want to, not because you're exhausted or scared or don't see another option. And in the meantime, we have dinner together. We talk. We figure out how to be parents. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. And I try very hard not to think about how much I want you. The rest of the evening passed in surprising normalcy. They ate dinner in a smaller dining room, just the two of them, talking about safe topics, her favorite books, his plans for the estate, names they might consider for the baby. It was almost easy, this careful dance around the bigger issues. After dinner, Dominic walked her back to the bedroom she'd woken in that morning. I'll be down the hall, he said. If you need anything, day or night, just call. Where's your room? The master suite is 2 doors down. He hesitated. But I'll sleep in my office tonight. Give you space. You don't have to. Yes, I do. His jaw tightened. Because if I'm anywhere near you tonight, I won't stay away, and you need time to think. He left before she could respond, and Lena was alone again in the too large bedroom. She changed into the silk pajamas that had appeared in the dresser and climbed into bed. But sleep wouldn't come. Her phone, returned to her as promised, showed a dozen messages from coworkers asking where she was. She typed and deleted responses, unsure what to say. How could she explain that she was living in her former employer's mansion because she was carrying his child? Around midnight, she gave up on sleep and wandered downstairs. The house was quiet, most of the lights off, but she could see illumination from under a door she hadn't explored yet. When she pushed it open, she found Dominic at a desk, surrounded by papers, his shirt sleeves rolled up and his hair disheveled. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face. Can't sleep? Too much in my head. She moved into the office, looking at the papers spread across the desk. What are you working on? Transition plans. He gestured at the documents, identifying which businesses to sell, which to convert, which to simply shut down. Can I see? He hesitated, then nodded. Lena moved behind the desk, looking over his shoulder at the detailed spreadsheets and legal documents. She'd expected something crude, violent. Instead, she saw meticulous planning, legal structures, investment strategies. This is comprehensive. I don't do anything by half measures. He leaned back in the chair. If I'm going to change, I'm doing it completely. How much will you lose? In the short term, about 40% of my net worth. He said it like it didn't matter. In the long term, the legitimate businesses will be worth more. And more importantly, there'll be something I can pass on to our child without shame. Our child. He kept saying it, claiming the baby as much as he claimed her. Lena found her hand drifting to her stomach, the slight swell that was just beginning to show. Do you really think you can walk away from this life? I have to. He turned in the chair and suddenly they were very close. Because the alternative is raising my child in fear, teaching them that power comes from violence, and I won't do that. Your father made different choices. Pain flashed across his face. He believed in the old ways, honor through strength, loyalty through fear, and it got him killed in front of his son. I'm sorry. Don't be. He caught her hand, threading their fingers together. It made me who I am. But who I am can change, is changing, because of you, because of this. His free hand settled on her stomach again, and Lena felt the weight of what he was offering. A complete transformation. A man willing to dismantle his empire for a child he'd only just learned about. What if I asked you to stop? She said quietly. Not to change your business, but to let me go. To let me raise this baby alone. I'd tell you no. No hesitation. I'd fight you with everything I have, legal battles, custody arrangements, whatever it took to stay in my child's life. Even if it made me hate you, even then. He stood, still holding her hand. I'd rather have you hate me and be part of this than lose you both. But I'm hoping it won't come to that. Why? Because despite everything, despite being terrified and angry and overwhelmed, you're here, at midnight, in my office, asking about my plans. That means something. He was right, though she didn't want to admit it. If she truly wanted to leave, she would have stayed in the bedroom, counted down the 2 weeks, and disappeared the moment she could. Instead, she was seeking him out, trying to understand the man who'd upended her life. I should let you work. She started to pull her hand away, but he held on. Stay. The request was quiet. Just for a while. You can read, or we can talk, or just sit. But stay. Lena knew she should refuse, should maintain distance and boundaries, should protect herself from the pull she felt toward this dangerous, complicated man. Instead, she settled into the chair across from his desk. Tell me about the legitimate businesses. What are you building? His smile was small but genuine. You really want to know? I really want to know. So he told her about the real estate developments that would provide affordable housing, the technology investments in startups founded by people from backgrounds like his, poor, overlooked, fighting for a chance, the scholarship fund he was setting up for children who'd lost parents to violence. You're trying to fix everything that broke you, Lena said after he'd been talking for an hour. Is that so wrong? No, it's... She searched for the word. Hopeful. I didn't expect that from you. I'm full of surprises. He closed the folder he'd been showing her. It's late. You should rest. So should you. I will, after I finish this section. Lena stood, then impulsively moved around the desk. Before she could second-guess herself, she leaned down and kissed his cheek. Thank you. For what? For trying. For wanting to change. For... She gestured at the plan spread across his desk. For this. His hand came up to cup the back of her head, holding her close for a moment. Get some sleep, Lena. Tomorrow we'll talk more. She left him there, surrounded by blueprints for a different life, and made her way back upstairs. This time, when she climbed into bed, sleep came easier. The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm. Dominic left early for business, returned for dinner, and they talked. About everything and nothing. He told her about growing up in Chicago's Italian community, about his mother who'd died when he was young, about the uncle who'd taught him the business. She told him about her own childhood, bouncing between foster homes, never quite belonging anywhere. They were both broken in different ways, she realized. Both survivors who'd learned to protect themselves by keeping the world at arm's length. Dr. Chen came for weekly visits, pronouncing both Lena and the baby healthy. The weight she'd lost was slowly returning, the circles under her eyes fading. She spent hours in the library, exploring the grounds, even trying the gym, though she tired easily. And slowly, carefully, the walls between them began to crumble. It was on the 13th night, the night before her 2 weeks would be up, that everything shifted again. They were in the library after dinner, Lena reading while Dominic worked on his laptop. The fire crackled, rain pattered against the windows, and it felt almost domestic, almost normal. I've been thinking, she said suddenly. Dominic looked up. About? Tomorrow, the end of our agreement. And? His expression was carefully neutral, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. I want to stay. The words hung in the air between them. Dominic set his laptop aside slowly. You're sure? No. Honesty compelled her. I'm terrified. I still don't fully understand your world or trust that this transformation is real, but She took a breath. I want to try. For the baby, and maybe for us. He crossed to her in 3 strides, pulling her up from the chair and into his arms. The kiss was different from the one in his office, not gentle or questioning, but claiming, possessive, full of the need they'd both been suppressing for 2 weeks. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. Tell me you mean it, he demanded roughly. Tell me you're choosing this, choosing me. I'm choosing to try. She pulled back to look at him. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. Don't make me disappear into your life. I need to be my own person, not just the mother of your child or the woman in your house. What do you want? I want to go back to school, finish my degree. It was something she'd barely let herself think about in years. I want to have something that's mine. Done. No hesitation. Whatever program you want, tuition paid, schedule built around the baby. What else? I want honesty. About your business, about what you're doing. I don't want to be protected from the truth. Even if it scares you? Especially then. She held his gaze. If we're doing this, really doing this, I need to know who you are, all of you, not just the parts you think I can handle. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he nodded. Okay? Complete honesty, even when it's hard. And one more thing. Name it. If I ever want to leave, if this becomes too much, you let me go. No legal battles, no custody fights, no using your power to keep me here. This one was harder. She could see him struggle with it, the possessive part of his nature warring with the promise he'd made. If you truly want to leave, he said finally, if you're genuinely unhappy and not just scared or overwhelmed, then yes. I'll let you go, but I'll fight like hell to make you want to stay first. It was the best compromise she'd get, and honestly, more than she'd expected. Okay. Okay. He pulled her close again. So you're staying. I'm staying. And we're trying. We're trying. Then I need you to know something. He pulled back to look at her. This isn't temporary for me. This isn't me being possessive or controlling or just wanting my child under my roof. He stopped, seeming to struggle for words. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the moment we met. And now that you're here, now that we're doing this, I'm not letting you go easily. Dominic, I'm falling for you, Lena. Maybe you already have. And I need you to know that before we take this any further. The confession stopped her breath. She'd expected desire, possessiveness, even obsession. But not this. Not honest emotion laid bare. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Just don't run. Whatever happens, whatever gets hard, promise me you'll talk to me before you run. I promise. The kiss that followed was inevitable, and this time neither of them pulled away. Dominic lifted her into his arms and carried her upstairs, to his room, to the bed he'd been sleeping alone in for 2 weeks. And when he laid her down on the silk sheets and looked at her like she was something precious, Lena felt the last of her resistance crumble. This was dangerous, probably foolish, almost certainly going to end in heartbreak. But for the first time in 3 months, she felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The weeks that followed were a study in contradictions that left Lena feeling like she was living in 2 worlds simultaneously. During the day, Dominic was everything she'd feared, controlling, possessive, wielding his power like a weapon to reshape her reality into something he deemed acceptable. At night, in the quiet hours when the estate settled into darkness, he became someone else entirely, someone careful, almost gentle. It was the duality that kept her off balance, that made her question everything she thought she knew about the man who'd claimed her and their child with such absolute certainty. She tried to leave exactly once, 3 days after that first night, had packed the designer clothes he'd bought her, refused to take them actually, insisting she'd wear her own things, and called for a car to take her back to her apartment. Dominic had listened to her speech about independence and autonomy without interrupting, his expression unreadable. Then he'd pulled out his phone and shown her the deed to her building, transferred to his name that morning. You said you wouldn't, she'd started, fury making her voice shake. I said I'd buy your building if you refused to get in the car that night, he'd corrected calmly. You got in the car, but I bought it anyway. Insurance. He'd pocketed the phone. Your landlord was planning to sell to developers who would have evicted everyone. Now your neighbors have secure housing at rates they can afford. You're welcome. The casual benevolence wrapped around a threat had left her speechless. That was Dominic's way. Every act of control somehow twisted into something that looked almost like kindness if you squinted hard enough. Now, 6 weeks since that rainy night, Lena sat in the estate's library, a book unopened in her lap, and tried to reconcile the man who'd had her apartment building purchased with the one who'd spent an hour last night researching nursery designs because she'd mentioned wanting something warm and welcoming for the baby. You're thinking too loud. She looked up to find Dominic in the doorway, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, his version of casual. He'd been in meetings all day, the kind he never discussed, but that left tension in his shoulders she'd learned to read. Just wondering when you're going to show me the cage you've built, she said, closing the book. This gilded prison is lovely, but I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. There is no cage. He crossed to the bar cart, pouring himself 2 fingers of whiskey. You can leave any time you want. Really? Just like that? Just like that. He took a sip, watching her over the rim of the glass. I won't stop you, won't follow you. I'll even have Marcus drive you wherever you want to go. The words should have been liberating. Instead, they felt like a test. And the baby? Is yours. Something flickered in his expression. I would prefer to be part of their life, would fight for that. But I won't keep you prisoner, Lena. That's not what this is. Then what is it? He set down the glass and moved closer, sitting on the edge of the leather couch where she'd curled up. It's me giving you what you need while you figure out what you want. It's making sure my child is healthy and safe. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. It's me trying to show you that staying isn't surrender. It's a choice you can make without losing yourself. But you still control everything. She gestured at the room, the house beyond. Where I sleep, what I eat, who I see. You even had my doctor appointments moved to private clinics so your doctor could be there. Dr. Chen is the best obstetrician in the state, Dominic said evenly. And yes, I control what I can control because that's who I am. But you've had autonomy in ways that matter. I've never touched you without permission, never made demands about your time or your choices. I set boundaries, Lena, but I haven't built a cage. She wanted to argue, but the truth of his words was undeniable. For all his commands and arrangements, Dominic had been scrupulously careful about her consent. The master suite had become hers alone. He'd moved to a room down the hall after that first night. The clothes he bought appeared in her closet, but he never commented if she wore her own things instead. He'd hired a chef who consulted her about every meal, brought in an interior designer who deferred to her taste for the nursery they were planning. Control, yes, but also something that looked uncomfortably like care. I don't understand you, she admitted quietly. One minute you're threatening to buy half the city to keep me close. The next you're telling me I can leave whenever I want. Which is it? Both. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. I want you here. I'll do whatever it takes to make staying the better option, but I won't force you. Can't you see the difference? It's a very fine line. Maybe. But it's the line I'm walking. His hand lingered near her face, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his skin. Every day I'm walking it, trying to balance what I need with what you deserve. And what do I deserve? The question came out softer than she intended. Everything. The word was fierce, absolute. Safety, comfort, the freedom to choose your own path, even if that path doesn't include me. His jaw tightened. I hate that possibility. It keeps me awake at night, but I'd rather you leave freely than stay because you feel trapped. The confession did something to her carefully maintained defenses. Lena had been so focused on resisting Dominic's control that she hadn't stopped to consider what that control might be costing him. The restraint it required from a man who was used to taking what he wanted. You're different than I expected, she said finally. Disappointed? Confused. She met his eyes. I've been waiting for you to turn into the monster everyone says you are, but you keep being human instead. I am human. His thumb brushed her cheek, the touch feather light. Being dangerous doesn't make me less so. It just means I choose very carefully who I'm gentle with. And you've chosen me? I chose you the moment you served me coffee 6 months ago and didn't simper or flirt. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You treated me like I was just another customer. Do you know how rare that is? How refreshing to be seen as something other than a threat or an opportunity? Lena remembered that day, though she hadn't known who he was then. Just another well-dressed businessman with dark eyes and an intensity that made her nervous. She'd spilled his coffee, actually, because her hands had been shaking from a double shift, and he'd simply asked for another without the temper she'd expected. You tipped me $50, she recalled. I thought you were showing off. I was ensuring you'd be my server next time I came in. The admission was casual, matter-of-fact. I wanted to see you again. Wanted to understand why you affected me the way you did. So you've been manipulating this from the beginning? Yes. No apology. I saw something I wanted, and I pursued it. That's what I do, Lena. But pursuit isn't the same as conquest. You came to me willingly that first night. stayed willingly through all the nights after. I never had to force what you were already giving. The memory of those 6 weeks rose between them. Stolen evenings in his penthouse, mornings tangled in sheets that cost more than her rent, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious and terrifying all at once. She'd felt alive in a way she never had before, like every nerve ending was suddenly awake after years of dormancy. And then fear had crept in. Fear of losing herself to someone so powerful. Fear of becoming dependent on something that couldn't last. Fear of what it meant that she could fall so hard, so fast, for a man whose world was built on violence and control. So she'd run. Had told herself it was self-preservation, wisdom, the smart choice. Now with his child growing inside her and his hand still gentle on her face, she wondered if she'd been running from the wrong thing all along. "I'm not staying because I feel trapped," she said, the words coming slowly as she worked through the truth of them. "I'm staying because I'm afraid of what it means that I want to." Dominic's expression shifted, something raw and unguarded crossing his features. "What does it mean?" "That I'm in deeper than I thought." She placed her hand over his, holding it against her cheek. "That maybe I never really left because I wanted to, but because I was terrified of how much I wanted to stay." "Lena, don't." She pulled his hand away, needing the distance to think clearly. "Don't say anything yet. I'm still figuring this out. Still trying to understand how I can want someone who scares me as much as you do." "I would never hurt you. Not physically. I believe that." She stood, needing to move, to pace. "But emotionally, Dominic, you have the power to destroy me, to make me into someone I don't recognize. And the worst part is, I'd probably let you." He was on his feet in an instant, catching her arm as she tried to walk past. "Look at me." When she did, his eyes were blazing with an intensity that stole her breath. "I don't want to change you, don't want to destroy you. I want you exactly as you are, stubborn and independent and so damn determined to handle everything alone that it drives me insane." "Then why try to control everything?" "Because control is how I keep you safe." The words burst out of him, raw and frustrated. "Do you know what kind of world I live in? The enemies I've made? The people who would love nothing more than to find a weakness they could exploit." His other hand came up to frame her face, urgent now. "You and that baby are my weakness, Lena. The only real one I've ever had. So yes, I control what I can control because the alternative is losing you to someone who wants to hurt me through you." The admission hung between them, and Lena finally understood. This wasn't just about possession or power. This was about fear. Dominic Vieri, the man who ruled half of Chicago through force and intimidation, was afraid. "Who would come after us?" she asked quietly. "Anyone who wants what I have. Rival families, law enforcement looking for leverage. People I've wronged who want revenge." He released her face but kept one hand on her arm, as if afraid she'd bolt. "I've made a lot of enemies building my empire, Lena, and they all know the easiest way to hurt me is through the people I care about. So this," she gestured at the estate, the security she'd noticed but tried to ignore. "This is all about protection?" "Protection, control. They're the same thing in my world." His thumb traced circles on her arm, unconscious. "I can't separate them. Can't turn off the part of me that needs to know you're safe every moment of every day. That's not sustainable, Dominic. I know." The admission seemed to cost him. "But I don't know how else to be, not with you, not with our child." Lena looked at him, really looked, and saw past the control and the commands to the man beneath, flawed, fearful, fighting the only way he knew how to protect what mattered. It didn't make it right. Didn't erase the ways his need for control chafed against her need for autonomy, but it made it understandable, human. "What if I helped you?" The words surprised her as much as they did him. "What if instead of fighting you on everything, I let you teach me how to navigate your world? Let you protect me, but on terms we both agree to?" Dominic stared at her like she'd spoken another language. "You'd do that?" "I'd try." She placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the slight curve that had started to show. "I can't keep pretending this baby is going to grow up in my world, not yours. But I also can't let you lock me away like some precious object, so maybe we find a middle ground." "Middle ground?" He tested the words, seeming to find them foreign. "I'm not good at compromise." "I've noticed." A small smile tugged at her lips. But you're going to have to learn, because I'm not good at surrender, and if we keep pulling in opposite directions, something's going to break. Then we learn together. He pulled her closer, carefully, like she might shatter. You teach me to compromise. I teach you that accepting help isn't weakness. Deal. She let herself lean into him, just slightly. But I have conditions. Of course you do. The warmth in his voice suggested he'd expected nothing less. Name them. I want to keep working, not at the restaurant, she added quickly when his expression darkened. But something. I can't just sit in this mansion all day waiting for the baby to come. I'll go insane. What kind of work? I don't know yet. Maybe finish my degree. Or volunteer somewhere. But something that's mine. Something you don't control. Dominic was quiet for a long moment, and Lena could almost see him wrestling with the instinct to refuse to keep her safely locked away. Finally, he nodded. Okay, but whatever you choose, I need to know where you are, and you take security with you. One guard, she countered, not a whole team, and they stay outside, not hovering over my shoulder. 2 guards, and they stay close enough to reach you in under 10 seconds. 1 guard, 20 seconds. 2 guards, 15 seconds. Final offer. Lena considered, then nodded. Fine, but I choose when and where I go. No restrictions on my schedule. Within reason. Before she could protest, he added, I'm not letting you wander around at 3 a.m, Lena. Pick your battles. She almost smiled at that. The negotiation felt good, felt like she was reclaiming some measure of control. What else? The nursery. I want final say on the design. We collaborate on the design, he countered. But I'm hiring the best security system in the country for that room. As long as it doesn't look like a bank vault. Deal. His hands had settled on her waist, natural as breathing. Anything else? Your business. She looked up at him. I don't want to know the details. Don't want to be involved in that side of your life. Can you give me that? Something shifted in his expression, a flash of what might have been relief. Yes, I've been keeping that separate anyway. What I do, the choices I make for the family, he used the word carefully, meaning his organization, that stays away from you, always. Okay, she took a breath. Then one more thing, the biggest one. Tell me, if I stay, when I stay, it has to be my choice, not because I'm afraid to leave or because you've made it impossible to go. It has to be because I want to be here, with you. Do you understand? Dominic's hands tightened on her waist, just slightly. I understand. But Lena, I need you to understand something too. I will do everything in my power to make you want to stay. I will use every advantage I have. I won't play fair. I wouldn't expect you to. She placed her hands on his chest, feeling his heartbeat beneath her palms. But no threats, no buying buildings or businesses, no manipulating my choices. If you want me to stay, convince me with who you are, not what you can control. That might be harder than you think. The admission was quiet. Who I am isn't always someone worth staying for. Then show me the parts that are. She met his eyes. You said you wanted me to see you as more than a threat or an opportunity. So let me. No games, no manipulation. Just you. For a long moment, Dominic just looked at her, and Lena saw something in his expression that made her chest tight. Vulnerability. Hope. Fear that she might not like what she found if he lowered his defenses completely. Then he leaned down and kissed her forehead, gentle and devastating. Okay, but fair warning, you might not like everything you see. I'll take my chances. He pulled back and the mask was back in place, the control that defined him. But beneath it, Lena thought she saw cracks, places where she might slip through, might find the man he was when no one was watching. It's late, he said, though it was barely 9. You should rest. I'm not tired. Then humor me. He guided her toward the door with a hand on the small of her back. Dr. Chen said you need at least 8 hours a night. Dr. Chen says a lot of things. But Lena let him walk her through the house, up the stairs, to the master suite that still felt too large, too luxurious. Are you going to tuck me in too? If you want me to. He said it seriously, and Lena had to laugh. I'm pregnant, not 5 years old. Could have fooled me with how stubborn you are. But there was warmth in his voice. affection that felt dangerous and thrilling all at once. They reached her door, and Lena paused with her hand on the handle. Dominic? Yes? Thank you for listening, for trying. Don't thank me yet. He brushed a kiss across her temple, barely there. I'm going to be terrible at this, at compromise and middle ground and all the things that require me to not be in complete control. I know. She turned to face him fully. But you're going to try anyway. That's what matters. He studied her face like he was memorizing it. You're very certain I'm worth the effort. I'm certain our child deserves parents who try. She placed a hand on her stomach. Everything else, we'll figure out as we go. Something in his expression softened. Our child is lucky to have you as a mother. We'll see if you still think that when I'm sleep-deprived and hormonal. She opened the door. Good night, Dominic. Good night, Lena. She closed the door between them and leaned against it, heart racing. The conversation had shifted something fundamental between them, had opened a door she hadn't realized was closed. For the first time since that night in the rain, Lena felt like she could breathe. Like the future wasn't just something happening to her, but something she might have a say in shaping. On the other side of the door, Dominic stood for a long moment, forehead resting against the wood. He could hear her moving around inside, the quiet sounds of her preparing for bed. Everything in him wanted to open that door, to follow her inside, to claim what his instincts insisted was his. But he'd meant what he said. He wouldn't force what she wasn't ready to give, even if the restraint was killing him. The next morning, Lena woke to find a laptop on the desk in her room, top of the line and already set up with her name. A note beside it, in Dominic's precise handwriting. For school applications or whatever else you need. D. She ran her fingers over the keys, touched in a way she hadn't expected. It was a small thing, really, but it meant he'd listened. Had heard her need for something of her own and taken a step to make that possible. Maybe, she thought, this could work. Maybe they could find a way to be in each other's lives without destroying each other in the process. The thought was terrifying, hopeful, absolutely insane. She opened the laptop and started researching programs, schools, possibilities for a future that felt suddenly, impossibly within reach. Downstairs, Dominic sat in his office, phone pressed to his ear as he listened to Marcus give him the security report. 2 men had been asking questions about him in the South Side. Nothing concrete, just probing, testing for weaknesses. Double the detail on the estate, Dominic said quietly, and I want to know who they work for by end of day. Already on it, boss. Dominic hung up and stared at the monitor showing various angles of the house. Found the one that showed the master suite windows. Lena's silhouette was visible through the curtains, moving around the room. His weakness, his vulnerability. The thing that could bring his entire empire crashing down if anyone figured out just how much she meant to him. He should send her away. Somewhere safe, far from Chicago and the life he'd built here. Should put distance between them until the danger passed, until he'd eliminated every threat. But the thought of her being gone, of not seeing her every day, of not being there for every moment of this pregnancy, it was unbearable. So he'd do what he did best. He'd control what he could control. Tighten security. Eliminate threats before they materialized, build walls so high and strong that nothing could touch her, and hope that Lena never found out just how dangerous loving her had made his world. 3 weeks later, Lena stood in what would become the nursery, watching workers install the security system Dominic had insisted on. She'd argued, of course, the cameras and sensors seemed excessive for a baby's room, but he'd been immovable on this point, and she'd decided to pick her battles. Besides, she was starting to understand that his need to protect came from a place of genuine fear, not just control. The more time she spent in his world, the more she glimpsed the threats he navigated daily. The careful way he moved through the city, the security that was always present but tried to be invisible. The phone calls he took in Italian, voice hard and cold, in a way that reminded her exactly who he was. What do you think? She turned to find him in the doorway, jacket off, looking tired. He'd been working late every night this week, meetings and business that kept him occupied until the early hours. But he still came to find her every evening, still asked about her day, still looked at her like she was the only thing that mattered. I think our baby is going to be the most secure infant in Chicago. She gestured at the cameras. Maybe the country. Good. He crossed to stand beside her, looking up at the ceiling where they'd painted clouds and stars. Better paranoid than sorry. Is something wrong? She'd learned to read his moods, the subtle tells that said when business was more complicated than usual. "You've been tense all week. Nothing you need to worry about." The automatic response. The wall he kept between his two worlds. Dominic. She touched his arm. "We agreed. No shutting me out completely." He looked down at her hand on his arm, then back to her face. "Some things are better left separate." "Not if they're affecting you like this." She moved to stand in front of him, forcing eye contact. "I'm not asking for details. I'm not asking to be involved. But I can see when something's bothering you, and I want—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I want you to know you can talk to me. Not about the business, but about how it makes you feel. The weight of it." Dominic stared at her like she'd said something revolutionary. "No one's ever asked me that before." "Asked you what?" "How it feels. What it costs." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb stroking her cheekbone. "Everyone wants to know what I'm planning, who I'm targeting, how I'm going to handle problems. No one asks if I'm tired of it." "Are you?" The question was barely a whisper. "Tired of it?" "More than I can say." The confession seemed to surprise him as much as it did her. "I've been doing this since I was 16, Lena. My father's death left a vacuum, and I filled it because someone had to. But sometimes I wonder what my life would have been if I'd had a choice." It was the most he'd ever revealed about his past, about the man beneath the reputation. Lena's heart ached for the boy who'd been forced to become a monster to survive. "You have a choice now," she said quietly. "Not about everything. I know you have responsibilities, obligations. But about this," she placed her hand on her stomach, "about us. You get to choose what kind of father you want to be. What kind of man? And what if I don't know how to be anything other than what I am? Then we figure it out together." She laced her fingers through his. "No one expects you to change overnight, Dominic, but maybe, little by little, you can start building a different kind of life. One where our child knows you as more than just the name people whisper in fear." His arms came around her, pulling her close with a desperation that spoke of how much he needed to hear those words. "You make me want to believe that's possible." "It is possible." She wrapped her arms around his waist, breathing in his scent, cedar and leather, and something uniquely him. "But you have to want it too. Have to be willing to let go of some of the control, some of the power. Can you do that?" The silence stretched long enough that Lena thought he might not answer. Then quietly, "I don't know, but I'll try. For you, for our child." It wasn't a promise, wasn't even really a commitment. But it was honest, and right now, that was enough. They stood like that, wrapped around each other in the half-finished nursery, two people from different worlds trying to build a bridge between them. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the room in shades of gold and amber. "Sophia," Lena said suddenly. Dominic pulled back to look at her. "What?" "If it's a girl, Sophia." She smiled up at him. "You said that was your mother's name. I think it's beautiful." Something shifted in his expression, something raw and overwhelming. "You do that? Even though you never knew her?" "I do it because she mattered to you. Because I want our daughter to carry something of your past, not just your present." She touched his face. "I want her to know where she comes from, all of it." Dominic kissed her then, slow and deep and full of things he couldn't put into words. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with emotion he didn't try to hide. "Thank you," he said roughly, "for that. For everything you're giving me." "We're giving each other," she corrected. "This only works if it goes both ways." "Then what can I give you? What do you need?" Lena thought about that. Thought about all the things she'd convinced herself she didn't deserve, didn't need. Safety, stability, someone who looked at her like she was the center of their universe. "Time," she said finally. "Just time. To figure this out. To learn how to be us instead of you and me fighting each other. Time I can give you." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "All the time you need." It was a promise they both knew might be impossible to keep. Time had a way of running out, especially in Dominic's world. But standing there in the golden light, with his child growing between them and hope flickering like a candle in the dark, Lena let herself believe. Let herself imagine a future where this impossible thing might actually work, where love could survive the darkness they'd both been running from. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon in November, when the first snow of the season was falling soft and silent over the estate grounds. Lena had spent the morning at Northwestern, meeting with an admissions counselor about finishing her degree. The conversation had gone well. Better than well, actually. They'd been impressed with her transcripts, interested in her story, willing to work around the pregnancy. For the first time in months, she'd felt like herself again. Not Dominic Vieri's woman or the mother of his child, but just Lena, a person with ambitions that had nothing to do with the complicated situation she'd found herself in. She'd returned to the estate energized, ready to tell Dominic about the programs they'd discussed, the spring semester she might be able to start. But the moment she walked through the door, she knew something was wrong. Marcus met her in this foyer, his expression carefully neutral in a way that set off every alarm bell she'd learned to recognize. "Ms. Hart, Mr. Vieri is in his office. He'd like to see you immediately." The phrasing, formal, controlled, told her this wasn't about dinner plans or nursery designs. This was business bleeding into the careful separation they'd maintained. "What happened?" she asked. "He'll explain." Marcus gestured toward the hallway. "Please." Lena's hand went instinctively to her stomach, now rounded enough that she couldn't hide the pregnancy anymore. At 5 months, the baby had become real in ways that transcended ultrasounds and morning sickness. She felt movement now, small flutters that Dominic had been present for exactly once, his hand pressed to her belly with an expression of such wonder it had made her chest ache. She found him standing at the window of his office, shoulders rigid, one hand pressed against the glass. He didn't turn when she entered. "Dominic?" She closed the door behind her. What's going on? How was your meeting?" His voice was controlled, but she heard the edge beneath it. Fury, barely leashed. "It was good. They think I can start in January if... You can't go back." The words landed like a physical blow. Lena felt her carefully constructed hope crack down the middle. "What?" "To Northwestern, to campus. You can't go back." He turned finally, and the look on his face made her take a step backward. Not fear of him. She'd never been afraid of Dominic hurting her physically, but fear of what this conversation was about to cost them. "We had a deal," she said, keeping her voice level. "I could continue my education. You agreed. That was before someone tried to grab you this morning." The room tilted slightly. Lena gripped the back of a chair. "What are you talking about?" "A car followed you from here to campus. 2 men. They waited in the parking garage while you were inside, and when you came out, they approached you, asked if you needed a ride." His jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. "Do you remember that?" She did, vaguely. 2 men in a dark sedan asking if she was lost. She'd said no, thanked them, kept walking. Her security detail, 2 guards Dominic had insisted on, who she'd gotten used to ignoring, had materialized then, and the men had driven away. "I thought they were just being polite," she said slowly. "They were being threatening." Dominic crossed to his desk, pulling up security footage on his computer. "Look." The video showed the parking garage from multiple angles, the men approaching her, one of them reaching for her arm, her guard stepping in, hand inside his jacket where his weapon would be. The men backing off, but not before one of them looked directly at the camera and smiled. A message. This was a message. "Who are they?" Lena's voice came out smaller than she wanted. "Carlo Ravenna's men." The name was spat like a curse. "He's been trying to muscle into my territory for the last 2 years. We've had an understanding. He stays south of Madison. I don't burn his operations to the ground, but apparently he's decided to test those boundaries. By coming after me? By coming after my weakness." Dominic's hand slammed down on the desk hard enough to make her jump. "By proving he can get close to the mother of my child whenever he wants. By showing me that all my security and all my power can't keep you completely safe." The pieces clicked together, and Lena felt cold wash through her. "This is what you were afraid of, what you've been trying to protect me from." "Yes." He moved toward her, stopping just out of reach. "This is why I need to control everything. Why I can't let you just walk around the city like you're invisible." "You're not invisible, Lena. Not anymore. Not to people who want to hurt me. So your solution is to lock me away." Anger was starting to burn through the fear. To take away the one thing I asked for, the one piece of independence I negotiated? My solution is to keep you alive. The words echoed in the suddenly silent room. Do you understand what would have happened if your guards hadn't been there? If those men had gotten you into that car, I would have received a call with demands. Money, probably. Territory. And when I refused, because I would refuse, because I don't negotiate with people who threaten what's mine, they would have hurt you, hurt our baby, sent me pieces of you until I gave them what they wanted. The graphic description made bile rise in Lena's throat, but she forced it down. That didn't happen. Your security worked. The system you put in place protected me exactly like it was supposed to. This time. He was in front of her now, hands gripping her arms. This time it worked. But what about next time? What about when they get smarter, more careful? What about when they figure out a way past my guards? Then we adjust security, add more protection. But you can't ask me to give up my life, Dominic. You can't ask me to stop being me just because someone might use it against you. I'm not asking. The words were flat, final. I'm telling you, no more campus visits. No more going anywhere you don't absolutely have to go. You stay here where I can keep you safe. That's not staying. That's imprisonment. She pulled away from his grip. You promised me this wouldn't become a cage. I promised before I knew how much danger you were in. His control was fracturing, emotion bleeding through in a way she'd rarely seen. Before I had to watch security footage of strange men putting their hands on you, knowing that I wasn't there, couldn't protect you myself. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I can imagine. Her own anger was rising to match his. Because I've spent 5 months watching you disappear into a world I don't understand, doing things you won't tell me about, and wondering every day if you're going to come home. I've lived with that fear, that uncertainty. Now you're asking me to accept being a prisoner in your house because you can't handle the same thing? It's not the same. Why? Because you're Dominic Vieri and you're supposed to be invincible? She laughed, the sound bitter. You're not. You're human. You can be hurt just like anyone else, but you still go out there every day and do what you have to do. All I'm asking is for the same courtesy. You're pregnant! The words burst out of him. You're carrying my child, and that changes everything. I can take risks with my own life, but not with yours. Not with our babies. So I'm supposed to put my entire existence on hold until what? Until the baby is born? Until they're 5, 10? When does it end, Dominic? When do I get to be more than just the vessel carrying your heir? The moment the words left her mouth, she regretted them. Saw them land like a blow in Dominic's expression, saw something crack in his carefully maintained control. Is that what you think? His voice had gone very quiet, which was somehow more terrifying than the shouting. That you're just a vessel to me? That this is about the baby and nothing else? I don't know what to think. Lena pressed her hands to her face, feeling tears threaten. You say you want me here by choice, but the first time something goes wrong, you pull out commands and ultimatums. You say I'm not a prisoner, but you're literally forbidding me from leaving the estate for anything that's not pre-approved by you. What am I supposed to believe? Believe that I love you. The words exploded into the space between them, raw and devastating. Dominic looked as shocked as Lena felt, like he hadn't meant to say it, hadn't meant to let that slip past his defenses. What? Her voice was barely a whisper. I love you. He said it again, deliberate now, each word precise. I have since before you even knew my name. Since you spilled coffee on me and apologized like the world was ending, then brought me a new cup with hands that shook from exhaustion. I loved you through those 6 weeks when I pretended it was just an affair. Loved you when you ran. Loved you through 3 months of not knowing where you were or if you were safe. He moved closer, desperate now. And I love you now, watching you carry my child and fight me at every turn because you're too damn stubborn to let me protect you the way I need to. Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't process the confession she'd never expected, never let herself hope for. You love me. Yes. He reached for her, hands gentle on her face. I love you so much it terrifies me. So much that the thought of losing you makes me crazy. Makes me controlling and irrational in everything you've accused me of being. But I can't change it, Lena. Can't turn it off. You and that baby are everything to me, and I will do whatever it takes to keep you safe. Even if you hate me for it. The tears she'd been fighting spilled over. I don't hate you. I could never hate you. But I can't live like this, Dominic. Can't spend the rest of my life being afraid to step outside because someone might use me against you. Then what do you want me to do? His thumbs wiped at her tears, his own eyes suspiciously bright. How do I keep you safe without locking you away? Tell me, because I don't know. I don't know how to balance protecting you with giving you freedom. You deal with Ravenna. The solution came to her suddenly, terrifyingly clear. You remove the threat instead of hiding me from it. Dominic's hands stilled on her face. You're asking me to start a war. I'm asking you to finish one that's apparently already started. She covered his hands with hers. You said Ravenna has been pushing boundaries for 2 years. You said you've been maintaining and understanding, but he just violated that understanding by coming after me. So handle it. Handling it means people die, Lena. Probably a lot of people. It means escalation and violence and exactly the kind of business I've been trying to keep you separate from. I know. And she did. Was clear-eyed about what she was asking. But isn't that better than the alternative? Than me spending the next however many months or years locked in this house, going crazy, resenting you more every day until there's nothing left between us but bitterness? He pulled away from her, turning back to the window. You don't know what you're asking. The cost of what you're suggesting. Then tell me. She moved to stand beside him. Stop protecting me from the truth of who you are. Stop trying to keep your world separate. If we're going to do this, if we're going to be a family, I need to understand all of it. The silence stretched long and heavy. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the grounds in white. Finally, Dominic spoke, his voice rough with emotion. My father was killed when I was 16, shot in the street like a dog while my mother and I were at home having dinner. The men who did it worked for a rival family, someone who wanted what he had. I found out later that he'd been warned, told to increase security, to stay off the streets, but he didn't listen. Thought he was untouchable. Dominic's hands pressed against the glass. He wasn't. And my mother never recovered from losing him. She died 6 months later. The doctor said it was her heart, but I knew better. She died of grief. Lena's chest ached for the boy he'd been, for the losses that had shaped him into the man standing beside her. I took over what was left of my father's organization, Dominic continued, rebuilt it from almost nothing, and I made myself a promise. I would never be vulnerable the way he was, would never care about anyone or anything enough that losing them could destroy me. He looked at her then, and his eyes were devastated. Then you happened. You, with your fierce independence and stubborn pride, and the way you looked at me like I was just a man instead of a monster. And suddenly I was more vulnerable than my father ever was, because I had something that actually mattered. Dominic, if I go after Ravenna the way you're asking, people will die. His people. Mine. Maybe innocent people caught in the crossfire. I'll have to do things that will give you nightmares if you ever find out the details. And when it's over, when I've eliminated the threat and secured our safety, you'll look at me and see exactly what I am. Not the man who holds you at night or who can't wait to meet our daughter. You'll see the monster. I already see the monster, Lena said quietly. I've seen him since the beginning. I just also see the man. And I'm choosing to love both. The confession slipped out before she could stop it, and Dominic's head snapped toward her. What did you say? I said I love you. The words felt enormous, terrifying, absolutely true. I love you, Dominic, not in spite of what you are, but including it. All of it. The control and the possessiveness and the danger. The gentleness and the fear and the way you look at me like I'm the only thing in the world that matters. I love all of it, all of you. He was on her in an instant, hands framing her face, kissing her like she was air and he'd been drowning. Lena kissed him back with equal desperation, pouring 5 months of longing and fear and hope into the connection between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. You love me. I love you, she confirmed, which is why I'm asking you to trust me enough to be honest about what needs to happen. Not because I want violence, but because I want a future, a real one, where we're not constantly looking over our shoulders. If I do this, his voice was strained. If I handle Ravenna the way it needs to be handled, there's no going back. You'll be tied to me in ways that go beyond the baby, beyond choice. People will know you're mine, and that knowledge will make you a target for as long as I'm alive. I'm already a target, Lena pointed out. Today proved that. At least if we remove this immediate threat, we buy ourselves time. Time to figure out how to protect our family without sacrificing everything we are. Our family. Dominic tested the words, seeming to find comfort in them. You really see that? A future where this works? I see us trying. She placed her hand on her stomach, feeling the flutter of movement that had become familiar. I see our daughter growing up with parents who chose each other, who fought for each other, who weren't perfect, but who loved each other enough to keep trying. And if I fail, if I can't keep you safe even after dealing with Ravenna, then we fail together. She kissed him softly. But we don't quit before we start. We don't lock ourselves away from life because we're afraid of what might happen. We live, Dominic. We take the risks and accept the consequences, and we do it together. He pulled her into his arms, careful of her belly, and held her like she might disappear. You're going to give me a heart attack before this baby is even born. Probably. She relaxed into his embrace. But you love me anyway. I love you anyway, he agreed. And I'll handle Ravenna. But Lena... He pulled back to look at her. You need to understand that this will get ugly before it gets better. There will be things I can't tell you, times when I come home covered in evidence of what I've done. Can you handle that? I don't know, she admitted. But I'd rather handle it together than watch you carry it alone while I sit in ignorance. Okay. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. Okay. We do this together, but you follow my security protocols. No arguments, no pushing back. If I say you need 4 guards instead of 2, you take 4 guards. Deal. She caught his hand, pressing it to her belly. As long as you promise to come home. Every night, no matter what you're doing, you come home to us. Always. The baby kicked against his palm and his expression transformed into wonder. Did you feel that? She's been doing it all day. I think she knows when you're near. She. His hand spread wider, covering as much of her stomach as possible. Our daughter, Sophia. Do you really think it's a girl? Lena asked. I know it is. He said it with such certainty that she almost believed him. A girl who's going to be as stubborn and fierce as her mother, who I'm going to spend the rest of my life protecting from idiots who don't deserve her. She might not be stubborn, might be calm and rational like... Lena paused. Actually, neither of us are calm or rational. She's doomed. That surprised a laugh out of Dominic, genuine and warm. Completely doomed, but she'll be ours. Ours, Lena agreed, and let herself believe in the future that word implied. The next week was a study in controlled chaos that Lena observed from the carefully maintained distance Dominic insisted on. She didn't see the violence, didn't witness the meetings or the strategic moves he made against Ravenna's organization. But she saw the evidence of it in the tension that rode his shoulders, in the late nights when he came home exhausted, in the carefully neutral updates Marcus provided when Dominic was too deep in it to manage conversation. She also saw his restraint, the way he kept his promises even when it cost him. How he came home every night, no matter how late. How he checked on her before he did anything else, hands on her belly, counting kicks like he was verifying she was still real, still safe. How he held her in the dark hours before dawn and didn't talk about what he'd done but let her presence soothe something raw inside him. On the 8th day, he came home with blood on his shirt and shadows in his eyes. Lena met him in the foyer, took one look at his face, and made a decision. Come with me. She took his hand and led him upstairs, to the master suite that had been hers alone for 5 months, guided him to the bathroom, and started the shower. Get cleaned up. I'll find you something to wear. He obeyed silently, too tired to argue or question. When he emerged 20 minutes later in clean clothes, she was waiting in bed, covers pulled back in invitation. Lena, just sleep, she said quietly. You need rest, and I need to know you're okay, so just sleep. We'll talk in the morning. He climbed into bed beside her, careful and uncertain in a way that made her heart ache. Then she turned into him, resting her head on his shoulder, and felt him finally relax. I ended it tonight, he said into the darkness. Ravenna's organization is finished. He's gone. It's over. She heard what he didn't say, the cost, the violence, the things he'd done to ensure their safety. Okay, okay? He sounded surprised. That's all? What else is there to say? She pressed closer. You did what needed to be done. You came home. That's what matters. You don't want details? Don't want to know? No. She cut him off gently. I trust you to handle your business the way it needs to be handled. I just need you to come home to me when it's done. The breath he released sounded like relief. His arms came around her, one hand finding her belly out of habit. I thought you'd be horrified. Thought you'd look at me differently. I told you, I love all of you, even the parts that scare me. She tilted her head up to kiss his jaw. Now sleep. You're exhausted, and our daughter keeps kicking me whenever she senses you're stressed. As if on cue, the baby moved against his palm. Dominic's laugh was rough but genuine. She's already protecting you. Or she's already a daddy's girl who knows when her father needs comfort, Lena countered. Both. He settled deeper into the pillows, pulling her with him. She's going to be both. Strong enough to protect herself and soft enough to offer comfort. Like her mother. The compliment warmed her from the inside out. You really see me like that? Strong? Stronger than anyone I've ever met. His hand moved in slow circles on her belly. You faced everything I've thrown at you and haven't broken. Haven't run. Haven't stopped fighting for what you believe in. If that's not strength, I don't know what is. I ran once, she reminded him, and came back. That takes more courage than never leaving in the first place. He kissed the top of her head. I'm sorry, by the way. For the ultimatum. For trying to lock you away instead of dealing with the actual problem. You were scared. I get it now. She drew patterns on his chest. But we can't operate like that. Can't let fear make our decisions. We have to be smarter than that. We will be. The promise was firm. This was a lesson learned. Next time, because there will be a next time in my world, we'll handle it together from the start. Together, Lena agreed and let the words settle between them like a vow. They fell asleep like that, tangled around each other, the baby moving occasionally between them. For the first time since this whole complicated situation began, Lena felt like they were on solid ground, like the foundation they were building might actually be strong enough to support what they were trying to create. In the morning, she woke to find Dominic watching her, one hand still on her belly. How long have you been awake? She asked, voice rough with sleep. A while. He smiled, and it reached his eyes for the first time in over a week. You snore when you're pregnant. I do not! But she was laughing, the easy intimacy of the moment more precious than any grand gesture. Take it back. Never. He leaned down to kiss her, slow and sweet. I'm going to remind you of this every time you give me grief about something. Remember when you used to snore like a chainsaw? I'll say, and you'll have to admit I was right. You're impossible. You love me anyway. I love you anyway, she confirmed, and pulled him down for another kiss. This one heated, deepened, became something more than simple affection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic's eyes were dark with want. We should stop, he said, even as his hand slid up her side. You need rest, and I need to check in with Marcus about what I need, Lena interrupted, emboldened by the desire she saw in his face, is you, here, with me, not thinking about business or security or anything except us. Lena, her name was almost a groan, I've been trying to give you space. Time to figure out what you want without pressure. If we do this now, I know what I want. She cupped his face, making sure he saw the certainty in her eyes. I want you, all of you. No more sleeping in separate rooms, no more holding back. I want us to be together in every way that matters. Are you sure? His restraint was slipping. She could see it in the tension of his body, the way his hand tightened on her hip. Because once I have you like this again, I'm not letting go. I'm going to keep you in this bed until you can't remember why you ever thought we should be apart. Promise? The word came out breathless, needy. That broke his control. Dominic kissed her like he was starving for it, like the months of restraint had been torture. And Lena kissed him back with equal hunger, realizing just how much she'd missed this. The connection, the intimacy, the way they fit together like two pieces of the same whole. They made love slowly, carefully, mindful of her pregnancy but no less intense for the tenderness. And when it was over, When they lay tangled together with her head on his chest and his hand possessive on her belly, Lena felt something settle inside her. This was right. This was where she belonged. Not in spite of the danger or the complications, but because of the man who held her like she was everything. Who had fought for her, changed for her, loved her with an intensity that should have been terrifying but felt like home instead. "Move in with me," Dominic said into the quiet. "I already live here." "No, you're staying here. There's a difference." He shifted to look at her. "Move in with me, not as a guest or someone I'm protecting, as my partner, as the woman I love who's about to give me a daughter. Dominic, I know we've been taking things slow, letting you keep your space, but after last night, after this morning, I can't pretend anymore that I'm okay with the distance." His hand came up to cup her face. "I want you in my room, in my bed, in my life completely. Say yes." She should probably think about it, should probably maintain some independence, some separation. But looking at him, at this man who'd turned his world upside down for her, who'd fought his own nature to give her choices, who loved her with a fierceness that took her breath away, the answer was obvious. "Yes," she said simply. "Yes, I'll move in with you, completely. No more separation." The smile that broke across his face was worth every risk she'd taken to get here. "You're sure?" "I'm terrified," she admitted, "but I'm sure. This is what I want. You're what I want." "Then you have me." He pulled her impossibly closer. "All of me. For as long as you'll keep me. Forever then." She said it lightly, but meant it with everything in her. "Because I'm not letting you go either." They spent the rest of the morning in bed, talking and laughing and planning the future that suddenly seemed possible. And when the baby kicked hard enough to make them both pause, Dominic pressed his lips to Lena's belly and made a promise. "I'm going to give you the world, little one. Going to make sure you never know what it means to be afraid or unsafe. You and your mother both." He looked up at Lena. "That's my vow to you, to both of you, whatever it takes." Lena threaded her fingers through his hair, believing him. "We know, and we love you for it." It wasn't perfect. Their situation was still complicated, still dangerous in ways that would probably never completely go away. But lying there together, the three of them, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in longer than she could remember. Hope. Real, solid, unshakable hope that they could make this work. That love could be enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. That their daughter would grow up knowing she was cherished by parents who chose each other every single day. And for now, in this moment, that was everything. The contraction started 3 weeks early, on a morning in late February when the world outside was still caught between winter's grip and the promise of spring. Lena had been in the nursery, arranging the last of the clothes they'd bought, tiny onesies and soft blankets in shades of cream and pale pink, when the first pain hit. Sharp enough to make her gasp, to grip the edge of the dresser until it passed. She waited, counting breaths the way Dr. Chen had taught her. Could be false labor. Could be nothing. But when the second contraction came 15 minutes later, she knew this was real. "Dominic!" Her voice carried through the house, steady despite the fear creeping up her spine. Too early. 3 weeks was early, and Dr. Chen had warned them about complications, about risks. He appeared in the doorway within seconds, phone already in his hand. "What's wrong?" "The baby's coming." She managed a shaky smile. "I think Sophia decided she's done waiting." The transformation in his expression was immediate, from concerned to absolutely focused. "How far apart?" 15 minutes so far, but Dominic, it's too early. Dr. Chen said..." "Dr. Chen is already on her way." He was at her side, one arm supporting her. "I called her the moment you said my name. Marcus is bringing the car around. We're going to the hospital now." "You called before you even knew what was wrong?" Despite the situation, she felt warmth bloom in her chest. "I knew." His hand found her belly, protective. "I've been watching you all morning. Saw the way you were moving, the tension in your shoulders. I knew something was happening." "Of course you did." She leaned into him as another contraction built. "Nothing gets past you. Not when it comes to you." He held her through the pain, murmuring reassurances in Italian that she didn't understand but that soothed something deep inside her anyway. The drive to the private hospital Dominic had arranged was a blur of pain and pressure, and Dominic's steady presence beside her. He held her hand, counted breaths with her, promised her over and over that everything would be fine. Dr. Chen met them in the private wing, her expression professionally calm. "Let's get you checked out and see where we are." The examination was quick but thorough. When Dr. Chen looked up, she was smiling. 4 centimeters dilated. "You're definitely in labor, but the baby's heartbeat is strong and steady. 3 weeks early isn't ideal, but it's not dangerous. We'll monitor closely, but I expect you'll have a healthy baby girl by tonight." Tonight? Lena felt the reality of it crash over her. "I'm going to be a mother tonight." "We're going to be parents," Dominic corrected, his grip on her hand tightening. "Together." The labor progressed faster than anyone expected. By early afternoon, Lena was at 7 centimeters, the contractions coming hard and fast enough that speech became difficult. Dominic never left her side, letting her squeeze his hand until she was certain she'd break bones, wiping her forehead with cool cloths, being exactly what she needed without her having to ask. "I can't do this," she gasped during a particularly brutal contraction. "It's too much. I can't." "Yes, you can." He leaned close, his forehead touching hers. "You're the strongest person I've ever met, Lena. You've handled everything I've thrown at you and come out fighting. You can handle this." "Easy for you to say. You're not the one being ripped apart from the inside." "No." His smile was gentle. "But I'd trade places with you in a heartbeat if I could. Take all of this pain if it meant you didn't have to feel it." "That's the most ridiculous thing you've ever said." But she was smiling through the tears, loving him for the sentiment even as the next contraction built. By 6 o'clock, with the winter sun setting outside the windows, Dr. Chen declared it was time to push. Lena felt panic surge through the exhaustion. "I'm scared," she whispered to Dominic. "I know." He kissed her temple. "But you're not alone. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "Promise." He moved to support her shoulders, his presence solid and unwavering. "Now show our daughter how strong her mother is." The pushing seemed to last forever, and no time at all. Pain and pressure and Dominic's voice in her ear, telling her she was amazing, she was doing so well, just a little more. Dr. Chen's steady instructions cutting through the chaos, the sense that her entire world had narrowed to this moment, this effort, this singular purpose. And then, at 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, Sofia Vieri entered the world with a cry that was surprisingly strong for someone so small. "She's perfect," Dr. Chen announced, placing the tiny, squalling bundle on Lena's chest. "Absolutely perfect." Lena looked down at the baby in her arms, this impossibly small person who'd been growing inside her for 9 months, and felt her entire world realign. Dark hair plastered to a tiny head, eyes scrunched shut against the brightness. Fingers no bigger than matchsticks, already grasping at air. "Hi, baby girl," she whispered, tears streaming freely now. "Hi, Sophia. We've been waiting for you." Beside her, Dominic made a sound that might have been a sob. When Lena looked up, she saw tears on his face, too, his expression transformed by wonder and love so intense it was almost painful to witness. "Can I—" His voice broke. "Can I hold her?" Lena nodded, and Dr. Chen helped transfer Sophia into Dominic's arms. He held the baby like she was made of spun glass, both hands supporting her tiny body, staring down at her with an expression Lena had never seen before. "Sophia," he breathed, "my beautiful girl, you look just like your mama." "She has your chin," Lena pointed out, studying the tiny features, "and I think your nose." "Poor thing." But his smile was blinding. "Stuck with my features." "Best features in the world," Lena countered, exhaustion making her voice soft. "Because they're yours." Sophia chose that moment to open her eyes, and Lena watched Dominic fall completely, irrevocably, in love. She could see it in the way his entire body softened, in the gentle way he touched Sophia's tiny hand, in the Italian words he murmured too quietly for Lena to hear, but that sounded like promises. "Mr. Vieri," Dr. Chen said gently, "we need to take Sophia for her newborn checks. Just routine measurements and tests. You can come with us if you'd like." Dominic looked at Lena, torn. "I should stay with you. Go." She reached out to touch his arm. "Go with our daughter. I'll be fine. I want you to be there for every moment." He leaned down and kissed her, soft and reverent. I love you. Thank you. For her. For everything. I love you too. She watched him follow Dr. Chen out, still holding Sophia like she was the most precious thing in the universe. Alone in the room, Lina let the tears come fully. Relief and joy and overwhelming love for the tiny person who'd just changed her entire world. She'd been so scared for so long, scared of what it would mean to tie herself to Dominic, to bring a child into his complicated world. But looking at his face when he held Sophia, seeing the man he became the moment he became a father, she knew it had all been worth it. Every argument, every compromise, every moment of doubt and fear. All of it had led to this, to Sophia, and to the family they were building together. An hour later, Dominic returned with Sophia swaddled in a soft pink blanket. She's healthy, perfect in every way, 5 pounds, 8 ounces, 17 inches long, and already opinionated about everything. Pride colored every word. Like her parents, Lina said with a tired laugh. He settled into the chair beside her bed, cradling Sophia against his chest. The staff tried to take her to the nursery for the night. I may have convinced them that wasn't happening. Convinced or threatened? There might have been a strongly worded discussion about how my daughter stays with her parents. He looked unrepentant. They agreed it was best for everyone if we kept her here. You're going to be terrible at letting her do anything on her own, aren't you? Absolutely terrible. He gazed down at Sophia, who'd fallen asleep against him. She's staying with us until she's at least 30, possibly 40. Dominic, I'm joking. He looked up with a smile. Mostly. But Lina, look at her. She's so small, so vulnerable. How am I supposed to let her out into the world when there are people who might hurt her? The same way I'm going to, Lina said gently. By teaching her to be strong. By showing her she's loved unconditionally. By trusting that we've given her everything she needs to face whatever comes. That sounds much harder than just keeping her locked in the estate forever. It is harder. She reached out, and he carefully transferred Sophia back into her arms. But it's also right. We can't protect her from everything, Dominic. We can only love her and prepare her and trust that it's enough. He was quiet for a long moment, watching mother and daughter together. You're going to be an amazing mother. We're going to be amazing parents, she corrected. Together, figuring it out as we go. Together. He leaned in to kiss Sophia's forehead, then Lina's lips. I like the sound of that. They spent the night in the hospital room, taking turns holding Sophia, marveling at her tiny features, counting her fingers and toes over and over like they couldn't quite believe she was real. Dominic called Marcus with the news, his voice thick with emotion as he announced the birth of his daughter. Lina could hear the congratulations even through the phone, Marcus's normally stoic demeanor cracking with genuine happiness. He's crying, Dominic reported after hanging up. Marcus is actually crying. Everyone loves a baby. Lina adjusted Sophia in her arms, still getting used to the weight of her. Especially one as beautiful as this. She is beautiful. Dominic traced a finger down Sophia's tiny nose. Perfect in every way. The next morning brought visitors. Marcus arrived first, bearing flowers and a teddy bear that was almost as big as Sophia. His eyes went soft when he saw the baby, and Lina realized that for all his intimidating presence, he was just a man who'd served Dominic's family for years and was genuinely happy to see it grow. She's beautiful, sir, Marcus said quietly. Congratulations to you both. Thank you, Marcus. Dominic shook his hand, the gesture between them speaking volumes about respect and loyalty. For everything. Not just today, but all the months before. You kept them safe when I couldn't. It was my honor, Marcus looked at Lina. Ms. Hart, if I may say, you've been good for him. Helped him remember there's more to life than business. She's made me remember I'm human, Dominic corrected. That I can be more than what I was. The words hung in the air, weighted with meaning. Lina saw Marcus nod once, understanding passing between the two men. Then he excused himself, promising to handle everything so Dominic could focus on his new family. Dr. Chen came by in the afternoon to check on both Lina and Sophia. You're both doing wonderfully. I'd like to keep you one more night for observation, but if everything stays stable, you can go home tomorrow. Home. Lina tested the word, finding comfort in it. The estate had become home somewhere along the way, without her quite realizing it. There's something else. Doctor, Chen pulled up a chair. I want to talk to you both about the future, about what comes next. Is something wrong? Dominic's hand found Lena's immediately, protective. No, nothing's wrong, but you're going to need help. A newborn is exhausting even under the best circumstances. And Lena, you need time to recover from the birth. Dr. Chen looked between them. I know you value your privacy, but please consider hiring a night nurse for at least the first few weeks. Someone who can help with feedings, let you both get some sleep. No. Dominic's response was immediate. No strangers around my daughter. Dominic, Lena started. I'll handle the night feedings, he said firmly. I don't need sleep. You focus on recovering, and I'll take care of Sophia. You can't survive on no sleep indefinitely, Dr. Chen pointed out. Watch me. The stubborn set of his jaw said this wasn't negotiable. Let's compromise, Lena suggested. We try it ourselves for the first week. If we're both zombies and falling apart, we revisit the night nurse idea. Deal? Dominic looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. 1 week, then we reassess. Dr. Chen sighed but accepted the compromise. Fine, but if I see either of you looking dangerously exhausted, I'm insisting on help. After she left, Lena turned to Dominic. You know you're being ridiculous, right? Plenty of people hire help with newborns. Plenty of people don't have enemies who'd love to plant someone in their home to gather information or cause harm. He was holding Sophia again, his entire posture protective. I'm not taking that risk. Then we vet anyone thoroughly. Background checks, references, whatever you need to feel safe. Or I just handle it myself and eliminate the risk entirely. He looked down at Sophia, his expression softening. I want to do this, Lena. Want to be there for every moment, every feeding, every cry, every milestone. I don't want to outsource my daughter's care to someone else. The sentiment, spoken so plainly, melted any argument she might have made. Okay, we do it ourselves. But the moment it becomes too much, we ask for help. Agreed? Agreed. He pressed a kiss to Sophia's head. Though I maintain I can function on no sleep indefinitely. We'll see about that, Lena said with a smile. They brought Sophia home the next afternoon, the car seat looking comically large with such a tiny baby strapped inside. Dominic drove with exaggerated care, like they were transporting explosives instead of a newborn. Lena caught him glancing in the rearview mirror every 30 seconds to check on Sophia. She's still there, Lena assured him. Still breathing, still perfect. I know, I just need to verify. The estate had been transformed in the 24 hours they'd been gone. The nursery was completely finished, every detail perfect. But more than that, someone, probably Marcus, had placed flowers in every room, stocked the kitchen with easy meals, and left a note on the counter. Welcome home, Sophia. You're already so loved. Lena felt tears prick her eyes. He did all this? He's been working on it since I called with the news. Dominic was carefully extracting Sophia from her car seat. Marcus doesn't show emotion often, but he does show care. This is how he expresses it. It's perfect. Lena looked around the home that had once felt like a cage and now felt like a sanctuary. All of it. That first night was chaos. Sophia woke every 2 hours, crying with the desperate need only a newborn could produce. Dominic was up instantly each time, changing her, bringing her to Lena for feeding, burping her afterward. By 3 in the morning, they were both bleary-eyed and operating on pure adrenaline. This is harder than I expected, Dominic admitted, cradling Sophia against his shoulder while she fussed. How does something so small require so much constant attention? Welcome to parenthood. Lena was too tired to do more than smile. Still think you don't need a night nurse? Absolutely. But he said it with less conviction than before. By the end of the week, they'd established something resembling a routine. Dominic handled the night wakings, letting Lena sleep in stretches long enough to recover. During the day, she took over while he caught a few hours of rest. It wasn't perfect, and they were both exhausted, but it was working. More importantly, it was bringing them closer. There was something intimate about those quiet 3 a.m. moments, when it was just the three of them in the world. Dominic would bring Sophia to bed after feeding, and they'd lie there together, watching her sleep between them, marveling at the miracle of her. I never thought I'd have this, Dominic said one night, voice rough with exhaustion and emotion. A family. Something real and good and worth protecting for reasons that had nothing to do with power or legacy. You have it now. Lena touched his face. We all have it. I don't want to mess it up. The confession was quiet. Don't want to be the father my father was, absent, focused on business, leaving his family vulnerable. You won't be. She said it with absolute certainty. You're already nothing like that. You're here, present, choosing us every single day. Because you're my world. He looked at her in the dim lamplight. Both of you. Everything I do, every choice I make, it's all to protect this. To make sure Sophia grows up safe and loved and free to be whoever she wants to be. She will be. Lena believed it. Because she has you as a father. Because you'll show her what it means to be strong and gentle at the same time. And she has you as a mother, he countered, teaching her to be fierce and independent and never accept less than she deserves. She's going to be incredible. Lena looked down at Sophia, sleeping peacefully between them. A little bit of both of us. Completely unstoppable, Dominic agreed, and probably going to give us gray hair before she's 5. Definitely. Lena laughed softly. But worth every gray hair. The weeks blurred together in a haze of feedings and diaper changes and stolen moments of sleep. But somewhere in the exhaustion, something shifted. The walls Lena had kept up, the last defenses against fully surrendering to this life, crumbled completely. She stopped thinking of the estate as Dominic's home and started thinking of it as theirs. Stopped seeing herself as separate from his world and started understanding she was building a new world with him, one that was neither his old life nor her old life, but something entirely new. One morning, 6 weeks after Sophia's birth, Lena woke to find Dominic's side of the bed empty. Panic flared briefly until she heard his voice from the nursery, speaking softly in Italian. She got up and found him standing by the window, holding Sophia against his chest, pointing out the sunrise. And that's east, he was saying, like Sophia could understand. Where the sun rises every morning. Your mother loves the sunrise. Says it reminds her that every day is a new beginning, a chance to start fresh. Lena's throat tightened with emotion. Teaching her geography at 6 weeks old? He turned, unashamed at being caught. Why not? Never too early to start her education. But his smile was soft. She was fussy, thought she might like to see the sunrise with me. Did it help? She fell asleep 3 minutes ago. He pressed a kiss to Sophia's head. But I didn't want to put her down yet. Lena moved to stand beside him, wrapping an arm around his waist. Together they watched the sun paint the sky in shades of pink and gold, their daughter sleeping peacefully between them. I have something to tell you, Dominic said quietly. That sounds ominous. Not ominous, just significant. He shifted Sophia carefully. I've been working on something, a project, and I wanted to wait until I was sure before I told you. Working on what? Getting out. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was enormous. Not completely. I can't just abandon the organization without leaving a power vacuum that would start a war. But I'm transitioning, selling off the more dangerous aspects, moving toward legitimate business, real estate, restaurants, investments, things that don't require violence to maintain. Lena pulled back to look at him. Dominic, that's huge. When did you decide this? The moment I held Sophia for the first time. He met her eyes. I looked at her and realized I didn't want to be someone she had to make excuses for. Didn't want her growing up knowing her father was feared instead of respected. So I'm changing. For her, for you, for the family we're building. That kind of change doesn't happen overnight. She knew enough about his world to understand the complexity of what he was proposing. It's going to take time, and it's going to be dangerous. I know. He looked back out the window. That's why I've been working quietly, carefully, making deals, forming alliances with people who can help smooth the transition. Marcus has been invaluable. He's been wanting me to go legitimate for years. How long? Lena asked. How long until you're completely out of the illegal side? 2 years, maybe 3. He was honest, didn't try to sugarcoat it. It has to be gradual or people will see it as weakness. Try to take what I have. But I've got a plan, a timeline. And at the end of it, I'll be just another businessman. Wealthy, powerful, but clean. Just another businessman. She tested the words, trying to imagine Dominic in that role. Can you really be happy like that? Without the power, the control of the empire you've built? I'll have everything that matters. His free arm came around her waist. You, Sophia. Whatever other children we might have. A life where I come home at night without blood on my hands. Where the biggest stress is board meetings instead of staying ahead of people who want me dead. Yes, Lena. I can be happy like that. I think I could be happier than I've ever been. The future he was painting, normal, safe, boring by his standards, sounded impossibly perfect. What can I do to help? Be patient with me. He kissed her forehead. It's going to get harder before it gets easier. People are going to resist the changes, push back, test to see if I'm serious, and I'm going to have to prove I am, which might mean difficult choices. I can be patient. She rose on her toes to kiss him properly. As long as you keep coming home to us, as long as you keep choosing this family over everything else. Always. The vow was fierce. I choose you, every time. Sophia stirred between them, making the small sounds that meant she was waking up. Lena took her from Dominic, cradling her close. Good morning, baby girl, she murmured. Did you have sweet dreams? Sophia's eyes opened, dark like her father's, and Lena felt her heart expand impossibly further. This tiny person, this perfect combination of her and Dominic, represented everything good they could be together. Every possibility, every hope, every dream of a future neither of them had thought possible 6 months ago. I was thinking, Dominic said, watching them both. We should move. Lena looked up sharply. What? Why? Not far. Just to a different house. He gestured at the estate around them. This place is beautiful, but it's a fortress. A reminder of the life I'm trying to leave behind. I want something different for Sophia. A real home, not a compound. Where were you thinking? There's a neighborhood about 20 minutes from here. Families, good schools, tree-lined streets. Safe, but normal. His expression was almost shy. I could buy us a house there. Something with a yard where Sophia can play. Where we can be just another family instead of the Waitress in their fortress. The image he painted was so at odds with everything Lena had expected from life with Dominic that it took her breath away. You really want that? Suburban normalcy? I want whatever gives our daughter the best chance at a happy life. He touched Sophia's tiny hand. And I think that means not growing up behind walls and security gates. At least not these particular walls. Okay. The decision felt momentous and right all at once. Let's do it. Find us a house. A home. His smile was brilliant. I already found one. I was just waiting to see if you'd agree. Of course you did. But she was laughing, loving him for his presumption and his planning in equal measure. Show me. He pulled out his phone, bringing up photos of a beautiful colonial-style house. White exterior, black shutters, a sprawling yard with old oak trees. It looked like something from a magazine, the kind of house Lena had dreamed about as a child, but never thought she'd actually live in. It's perfect, she breathed. Absolutely perfect. We can be moved in by spring. Dominic was already making plans. She could see it in his eyes. Sophia will have her first birthday there, first steps, first words. All of it in a place that's ours, not weighted down by the history of my family. A fresh start. Lena liked the sound of that. For all of us. The next months were a whirlwind of change and growth. True to his word, Dominic began the process of legitimizing his business interests. It wasn't easy. Lena saw the toll it took in the late nights and tense phone calls, in the careful negotiations and occasional threats. But he was committed, and slowly, steadily, his empire began to transform. Meanwhile, Sophia grew. She smiled for the first time at 8 weeks, and Dominic nearly cried. Started sleeping through the night at 3 months, which felt like a miracle. At 4 months, she laughed, a real belly laugh, when Dominic made faces at her, and Lena captured it on video to replay whenever she needed to remember that joy existed. They moved into the new house in April, when the trees were budding and the world felt full of possibility. The neighbors welcomed them with casseroles and offers to babysit, treating them like any other young family instead of Chicago royalty. Dominic handled it with surprising grace, settling into the role of doting father and attentive husband like he'd been born to it. "This is nice," he said one evening, sitting on their new porch while Sophia played on a blanket nearby. "I could get used to this." "To what?" Lena settled into the chair beside him. "Normalcy?" "To peace." He watched Sophia grab her toes, delighted by her own discovery. "To coming home and not worrying about who might be waiting to kill me. To building something that lasts for reasons that have nothing to do with fear or power." "You're really doing it," Lena said, proud beyond measure. "Becoming someone new." "Not someone new," he corrected gently. "Just finally becoming someone I should have been all along. You made that possible, Lena. You and Sophia. You gave me a reason to want better." "We gave you a reason to choose better," she corrected. "You did the actual work, made the hard choices. Don't sell yourself short." Sophia chose that moment to roll over for the first time, and they both gasped. Dominic was on his feet instantly, kneeling beside the blanket. "Did you see that? She rolled over. Sophia, you brilliant girl, do it again." Watching him with their daughter, this powerful, dangerous man reduced to putty by a 5-month-old's milestone, Lena felt overwhelming gratitude for the path that had led them here, for the reckless night that started it all, for the courage to stay when running would have been easier, for the love that had transformed them both into better versions of themselves. On Sophia's first birthday, they threw a party in the backyard of their home. Not the elaborate affair Dominic had initially suggested, but something simple and sweet. A few neighbors, Marcus and Dr. Chen, a cake Sophia would definitely destroy. Watching Sophia smash her tiny hands into pink frosting, giggling with pure joy, Lena felt Dominic's arm come around her waist. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For giving me this. For trusting me enough to build a life together. For loving me even when I was difficult and controlling and probably didn't deserve it." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "For making me a father. For making me a man worth being." "You were always worth being," Lena said, turning to face him. "You just needed someone to show you that power isn't the same as worth. That being loved is better than being feared." "I love you." The words still came with weight, with the gravity of everything they'd overcome to get here. "More than I knew it was possible to love someone." "I love you too." She kissed him, tasting sugar from the frosting he'd snuck earlier. "My impossible, stubborn, wonderful man." "Mama!" Sophia's voice cut through the moment, her first real word clear as a bell. Both parents froze. "Did she just—" Lena started. "She did." Dominic was already moving toward Sophia. "Say it again, Piccola. Say mama." "Mama," Sophia repeated, reaching for Lena with frosting-covered hands. Lena gathered her daughter into her arms, tears streaming down her face. "Hi, baby. Yes, I'm Mama. And that's—" she pointed at Dominic. "That's Dada." Sophia looked at Dominic very seriously, then pronounced, "Dada." "That's right." His voice was thick with emotion. "I'm Dada." They stayed like that, the three of them, while the party continued around them. Their small family, built from impossible circumstances and fierce determination. Not perfect. They still argued about security and independence, still had to navigate the complications of Dominic's transition out of his old life. But real, honest, built on love instead of fear. That night, after the guests had left and Sophia was asleep in her crib, Lena and Dominic stood in the nursery watching her sleep. "I have something for you," Dominic said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Lena's heart jumped. "Dominic, it's not what you think. I mean, it is, but—" He took a breath. "I bought this the day you told me you were pregnant. Had it in my desk for months, waiting for the right moment. But there never seemed to be a right moment, just moments that were complicated or difficult or chaotic. And then I realized that's our life. It's always going to be a little complicated, a little chaotic. But it's ours." He opened the box to reveal a ring, not ostentatious or massive, but perfect, a diamond flanked by smaller stones that caught the light. "Marry me, Lena." He dropped to one knee right there in the nursery. "Not because of Sophia or because it's expected. Marry me because I love you more than anything in this world, because you've made me into someone I actually like being, Because I want to spend the rest of my life building this family with you. Yes. The answer came without hesitation, without doubt. Yes, I'll marry you. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood to kiss her, deep and sure and full of promise. When they broke apart, both were crying. I can't believe I get to keep you, he whispered. Keep this. You're stuck with us, Lena assured him, for better or worse. In legitimate business and whatever comes after. We're yours, Dominic, completely. And I'm yours. He pulled her close, the two of them wrapped around each other beside their daughter's crib. Always. In the months and years that followed, Dominic completed his transition to legitimate business. There were challenges, setbacks, moments when Lena feared he might be pulled back into his old life. But he held firm, kept his promises, chose his family over power every single time. Sophia grew into a bright, fierce little girl who had her father wrapped around her finger and her mother's stubborn determination. She started walking at 10 months, talking in full sentences by 18 months, and never met a boundary she didn't want to test. She's exactly like you, Dominic complained fondly when she was 2, after a particularly exhausting battle over bedtime. She's exactly like both of us, Lena corrected. Stubborn like me, commanding like you, and absolutely convinced the world should bend to her will. We're doomed. Completely, Lena agreed, but at least we're doomed together. They married quietly when Sophia was 2.5, in the backyard of their home with only their closest friends present. No massive wedding, no media coverage, just two people who loved each other, promising to keep choosing each other for the rest of their lives. And they did, through Sophia starting school and Lena finishing her degree. Through Dominic's final severance of ties to his old organization and the establishment of the Vieri Foundation, a nonprofit focused on helping at-risk youth, giving kids like he'd been another option besides violence and crime. Through the birth of their son, Marco, 2 years after Sophia, who came into the world just as dramatically as his sister. Through all of it, they kept their promises. Dominic came home every night. Lena never stopped pushing him to be better. They raised their children to be strong and kind, to understand they came from complicated beginnings, but that those beginnings didn't define their future. On Sophia's 5th birthday, Lena found Dominic in his office, looking at the ultrasound image he'd kept framed on his desk, the one that had changed everything. Feeling nostalgic? She asked, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Thinking about how different my life would be if you'd succeeded in hiding this from me. He touched the frame gently. If I'd never known about Sophia, if you'd managed to disappear completely, I couldn't have hidden forever, Lena said. You would have found me eventually. You always do. Maybe. Or maybe I would have spent the rest of my life not knowing what I was missing. He turned to pull her into his lap. Not knowing that this, normalcy and family dinners and birthday parties, could be better than any empire I ever built. No regrets? She had to ask, even though she thought she knew the answer. Not one. He kissed her softly. I'd give up everything I had before for one more day of this, for watching Sophia blow out candles and Marco learning to walk, for coming home to you every night and knowing I made the right choice. How could I regret the best decision I ever made? The best decision we both made, Lena corrected. I chose to stay, remember? Could have run. Could have built a life somewhere else. And I'd have found you and convinced you to give me a chance all over again. He said it with absolute confidence. Because some things are inevitable, Lena. Some connections transcend choice. We were always going to end up here. Here, being in each other's arms, with 2 children laughing in the next room and a future stretching bright before them. A future they'd fought for, bled for, changed themselves to deserve. I love you, Lena said, not for the first time and certainly not for the last. My impossible man who stopped being impossible just to prove he could. I love you, Dominic returned, my stubborn woman who wouldn't let me be anything less than I could be. Through the open door, they heard Sophia's voice. Marco, no, that's my toy! Followed by Marco's toddler response. Mine. We should intervene, Dominic said, without moving. Probably, Lena agreed, also not moving. In a minute. In a minute, she echoed. They stayed like that just a moment longer, 2 people who'd found each other in the chaos and built something beautiful from the wreckage of what they'd been before. Two people who'd proven that love could be stronger than fear, that choosing each other could be enough, that sometimes the most broken people could create the most whole families. Finally, they stood together and went to mediate their children's dispute. Together, as they did everything. As they would continue to do for all the years ahead, building their imperfect, chaotic, absolutely perfect life. One choice at a time. One day at a time. One moment of choosing love over fear at a time. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything.